All right, welcome everyone to this week's episode of KUDEN Radio. So, a couple of days till Christmas, right? December 23rd, 2024. That means, well, I guess it depends on where you are, who you are, how you celebrate, or if you even celebrate, right? This is one of those years, hasn't happened for, wow, is it 60 years, something like that? My grandfather was Jewish, so there was Hanukkah in the family. There was Rosh Hashanah, all those kind of things, right? So, but this is the first time in quite a long time that Hanukkah actually starts on the same day as Christmas. Anyway, not that it matters much. It's just kind of coincidental to me, since things like Hanukkah, the Festival of Lights, and there's a certain number of candles and whatnot, and then we have the 12 days of Christmas for those of us who celebrate that. James, do you know when the 12 days of Christmas actually starts? Do you know what that is? No. James is in the background hiding. Anyway, it actually starts on Christmas Day for most of us, but there's the Eastern Orthodox. Their stuff's not until January 5th or 6th. I always said that if I had my way, I'd have changed to that, because then I could have gotten all the gifts for everybody at a discount for all the after Christmas sales. Anyway, all right. So just ramblings of a Daishihan as we get started with this. So we'll see how many people end up joining in, based on them being maybe off, maybe not, whatever. Okay. So anyway, just a heads up for everybody to remember that we are not doing classes at the Academy this week nor next week. We closed down so that, one, I can get some extra stuff done. Two, I and the other instructors can, make sure we have plenty of time with family. Some of mine require travel. But we'll do KUDEN, right? Tonight we'll do it next week, and then that'll get us set up into the new year. But there also will not be our normal Wednesday training via YouTube, Warriors Whiteboard Wednesday. I know some of you guys on Facebook and whatnot, you get it as well, because that's this it's simulcast just like this does as well. But we won't be doing any of the hard training. There won't be any of the Friday virtual calls or training, anything like that. But we'll keep this stuff running. All right. So again, we'll see who makes it in. So this is actually going to be the first part of a 3-part series. For those of you who are regular followers, you know that I often do this, where I do kind of an extended kind of thing. Now, they'll all operate as standalone lessons or standalone podcast episodes. So for those of you who are on audio only, or you're catching this as a recording or whatever, don't worry about it, right? It's just kind of a thematic thing, that I have going on as we close out 2024 and roll into 2025. Based on the Gregorian calendar anyway, right? And I say that because the beginning of the Chinese New Year begins January 29th, and we'll have a Chinese/Japanese New Year's party at the Academy, so that we can discuss some of the old cultural kind of things when Japan was still on the lunar calendar, Chinese calendar, that kind of thing, right? But we'll just have these things going on. But what that means is that based on the Chinese/Asian calendar or zodiac, it's a time for shifting. So we're going to do our shift based on KUDEN topic and whatnot. Will that be January 6th, right? Our first KUDEN in January 2025, even though the lunar shift doesn't occur until the end of the month, okay? But that is integrated into this episode, okay? So this is part 1 of 3 as we start to prep for that kind of thing. And this time of year, what I like to do is do everything from, personal reviews, those kind of things. And I don't mean like, somebody reviewing the channel or whatever. If you like it, you like it, great. If not, that's okay too. If you'd like to leave a testimonial or a case study or what you've learned or why you'd listen in on a regular basis, that's fine. You can do that in the comment sections, the other places, and then just let us know if it's okay to use it or not. But I kind of have a 3-phase kind of process going on with these 3 episodes. During this one, we're not going to be discussing things to do to attain warriorship, to get better at what we're doing or whatever. Some of it's in there, but it's not going to be as heavy on that side as it will be on things to not do, stop doing, eliminate, those kind of things, right? It's just like with the Chinese New Year leading up to the actual day, there's all kinds of things that they do on a day-to-day basis. And one of those is cleaning house, right? But the cool thing is that this year, the animal and conditioning element, right, for those of you who don't know that, if you've only ever gotten your Chinese New Year's information off of the placemat at the Chinese restaurant, then all you see are the 12 animals and the years that you're supposed to match up with your date of birth, which doesn't work for those of us who were born in January, and sometimes even to early February, like the first week of February. Okay? And it's because of the way the lunar cycles work. Okay? So be careful. If your birthday's in January, and sometimes, depending on the year, into early February, you may have been thinking that you're the wrong animal for quite some time. I did, right? I thought I was a rabbit for the longest time because I was born in 1963. But since my birthday is January 8th, way at the beginning of January, I actually fall in the tail end of the year of the tiger, 1962. Anyway, but there are these conditioning elements, right? So a lot of you may know these, right? The gogyo, right, of Chinese medicine, those kind of things. In Mikyo, we recognize these as energy transformations. Godai is the manifestation and how things show up, the appearances of, and then the Gogyo is transformation, it's growth, it's destruction, it's processes, right? And so every year has a conditioning element as well, right? And what that means is if you combine 12 times 5 elements, right? What you end up with is not a 12-year cycle to when your year comes back again, right? That only counts if you're counting the animal itself. But there are 5 different types of each animal based on these conditioning elements, right? And in this case, coming up, we have a wood year, right? And so, water, wood, fire, earth, metal, back around to water again. But they rotate, or they shift as well. Okay, so it's not a 12-year cycle; it's actually a 60-year cycle. Okay, not to say that your 60th, like it occurs on your 60th birthday. That's not the way it works, right? Everybody tends to forget the 0 to 1 year, right? Parents count, well, he's 3 months, he's 6 months, he's, whatever. But your birthday, it's kind of a birth anniversary, right? It's the last day you will actually be that age, right? So for me to say that I'm 61, coming up on 62, no, this is my 62nd year of birth, of life, right? Going around the sun, okay? On January 8th, that'll be that'll be the 62nd full rotation for me, okay? Because 0 birthday to when you were 1 year old, right? People tend to forget about that part, right? So be careful if you're close to my age or whatnot, and you're going to look at this, the 60th year, the 60th cycle, when you come back to the same, in my case, a water tiger, that occurred during the year when I was 59. Yep, making air quotes for those of you on audio only. Okay, so be careful if you're actually going to do the celebratory kind of thing, right? A little bit of information, partly understood, can be just as bad as bad information. So anyway, what we're going to take a look at during this part is we're going to take a look at how, just a little bit. I'm going to save the whole wood snake kind of thing for 2025 for part 3. diving into that, what it means and how it represents. But the cool coincidental thing is that a lot of the stuff that we've been covering over the last several weeks, several months about things from Togakure school and how ninja really approach things, and not doing a Budo Ninpo hybrid kind of thing, really, really shines. So if you really want to be a ninja, the wood snake is a perfect, near perfect analogy for this thing. All right. But anyway, we're going to take a look at some things. We're going to take a look at, I've got a whole series of quotes from Hatsumi Sensei and Takamatsu-Sensei on a lot of things that people are letting get in their own way. Right? And we need to deal with these things, right? We need to handle them if we're serious, right? Because there's a huge difference between working on being a ninja and just accepting that we're just going to hang out as a ninja fan, right? Or we're going to play the part of, right? It's like an actor on a stage or in a movie, right? Playing the role of, but that doesn't make them that thing. Okay, we have to be careful, right? So let's go ahead and do this. Let me get things set up here, and we will get started in just a minute. So, the big question is this: how are self-defense and success-minded people like us, concerned citizens worried about protecting ourselves, our loved ones, and the things we care about from the monsters we know exist in the world? How do we train in a way that gives us the skills, knowledge, and understanding we need without becoming paranoid fighters or killers ourselves, and yet still allows us to be the hero protector the world needs us to be? That's the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. My name is Jeffrey Miller, and welcome to KUDEN Radio. All right, we are back. So I don't know if anybody else has joined in. I see some numbers here or there, but James and I had a discussion about this last episode where I don't think we're getting flow through information nearly the same from some platforms as we are from others. Is that right, James? I don't think it's synced just right. But anyway, so anyway, if you missed the pre-intro to this whole thing, we are here with episode 241, and so this is our one of our end of the year episodes, right? So I decided to run these episodes through the Christmas New Year's holiday here at the end of 2024 for those of you listening to things in the future. And so again, if you caught it ahead of time, you were one of the first ones on, then you already heard it. You have to forgive the slight repeat here, but this is part one of a 3-part series that will I'm going to call them bridge episodes. This idea of bridge days is a huge thing in Japanese culture around holidays. The Japanese have a lot of holidays, so but they also don't take the summer off for the kids aren't off for school, right? They go year round. Oh my God. Well, we do that here in the US because it's a throwback to when we were primarily an agricultural country. It never fails to amaze me, or I don't know, make me chuckle when people want massive things changed because certain things are outdated. But if you touch certain things like school vacation, or those kind of things that allow people to just do nothing, or that's when I take my vacations or whatever. People all over the world take vacations all the time, but so it's a throwback to our agricultural eras where the kids needed to be on the farm to help, right, over the summer. So here we are, still doing it when most people in this country are not farmers, right? So anyway, but in Japan, right, again, they go all year round, but they also have a lot of holidays, and sometimes you end up with like the end of one holiday bumping into the beginning of another. in a given week. You might, and they might be a 1-day holiday. It might be a several day, whatever. And so, but there might be a day or two in between the end of one and the beginning of another, or the end of one and a single day holiday kind of thing. So those days in between are called bridge days, right? And so what they'll often do is the holiday extends, right, over that bridge day or bridge days to catch the next one, so people aren't starting and stopping and those kind of things, right? So that's kind of the idea behind what I'm doing here. Okay, so we have a 3-episode mini series kind of thing, right? And so each one is going to cover a different aspect of something that would normally be done this time of year, whether we're talking about the Japanese going to temples, or how how people tend to look at the trailing out of one year and the beginning of another. Okay, so again, this is part 1. In part 2 next week, I'm going to talk about, or take a look at, kind of a it's a process that I've taught on before, but we're going to bring it back, and it's almost like taking a look at our Sanmitsu, the triple secrets of the 3 mysteries of thought, word, and deed for goal accomplishment. But this particular process is called Kaizen. If you work in a corporate structure, you may know this Kaizen idea, Kaizen. Kaizen. It's typically focused on constant improvement, right? TQM was something that was associated to a long time ago, total quality management, which was created by an American, D. Edward Deming, that he introduced and sold to the Japanese, because the Americans didn't want it after World War II. And that's why the Japanese soared past us in quality and whatnot. But Kaizen is like the Sanmitsu with an extra piece put to it. And so it's a process review stage. And so we're going to focus on that and how that kind of ties into what we're doing if we are working on growth and progress. Okay. If we're not, well, skip that one. Okay. And then what I normally do every year is the first episode for the year. So we take a look at the Chinese zodiac character and conditioning element. Take a look at what that means, what it typically symbolizes, each piece alone and then together, that kind of thing. And then we set our sights moving forward, right? And then right after that, or right around the same time, we have our annual Daikomyosai, our New Year's seminar. And I know everybody else has theirs pretty much at the beginning of December, because it matches up exactly with Hatsumi-Sensei's birthday. But I chose quite a while ago to not do that, because it's right in the middle of a major holiday season for us. Okay. And so if I want students to focus, then we kind of shifted it, get people out of our Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's debacle, and then we can kind of reset. Okay. So episode 2 next week will be centered around that Kaizen and how to go about working the process, right? And then episode 3 will be the first episode in 2025, and so we'll take a look at fully into this wood snake. Now, I'm going to be mentioning this wood snake symbology all the way through, including this one. But in this one, if you caught it coming in before I ran the intro video, that's fine. If not, what I want to do with this one is I want to take a look at tripping blocks and things like that. And contrary to what I often do, where it's hey, if you really want to get somewhere between A and Z, you're gonna need to do these things, right? You got to stop letting these other things get in the way or whatever. While there will be some of those things still in there, what I really want to focus on is the don't do is the hey, you know what? Instead of having you do things, which in all honesty, at least 80% of students don't follow anyway, right? And that's true across the board. I don't care if we're talking about ninjutsu or the rest of martial arts, or we're talking about it in a corporate setting or any other job setting or whatever. 20% of the people within that collective, right, produce 50% of the outcome. Right? That really pisses everybody off when that gets pointed out, but right. Why should I work harder? Well, it's kind of like respect, right? Me showing respect isn't a reflection on the other person as to whether I do it or not. It's a reflection on me. So why should I do any more than I'm getting paid for? Well, I don't know. Let's see. When I took the job, I agreed that would be my salary. So it must have been okay. If it wasn't, I should have said, no, I want more, or fuck off. Okay. But since I didn't, I made an agreement. So here I am. Right. But anyway, since most people don't like the do's, we'll just focus on the don't do's. Right. I have a bunch of quotes from Hatsumi-Sensei, Takamatsu-Sensei, that really focus on some of these sticking points that a lot of folks have. Right? And so maybe people take a Daishihan or any other teacher's Shihan, Shidoshi, whatever, lessons as a, whatever. Right? We'll just pull them from, the big guys. As much as I detest the sensei says kind of thing, some people won't take something seriously unless sensei says. Okay? Which automatically, by its very nature, makes those things. James, what's been thrown at us in the past? Old ideas. Yeah, well, ideas are old and we still have them and know them, and successful people still use them because they still freaking work. Okay? I love it when somebody tells me those are old ideas and they're using new stuff, but they're getting nowhere. Right? So it's kind of like holding on to a sinking ship. Right? And you're not the captain. I mean, ultimately, they're all the captain anyway. So let's do this before I jump into things, because I've got a butt ton of notes. James, are you there? Are you not there? I'm gonna pop him up on my end. He was having some internet issues earlier. There he is. So who's on at this point? Who signed in? Who said hey? Who said that's it? I'm out of here.
Looks like so far Jared and Dave have both signed in.
Okay. Any questions, comments, anything so far?
Dave just said jingle bells, celebrate them all. More holiday spirit is good for you, sharing our cultures.
I agree. All right. So let me just jump into this and pop up my notes here. All right. So again, we're closing out 2024 for those of you listening into the future. I don't care if that's a day from now, 5 hours from now, or 5 years from now. And we're going to be ushering in, based on the Chinese calendar, Chinese zodiac, which the Japanese followed. You can look it up. You can just do a Google search as when the Japanese switched over to the Gregorian calendar. But the Japanese in general followed for a very, very long time. There are still very rural areas in Japan where they still celebrate what we're typically calling the Chinese New Year, but the lunar holiday. But there's that little bit of focus, right? So what I thought we'd do during this one is to weave together some of the principles of action, as well as procrastination, right? Martial arts, philosophical mindset, those kind of things that we often talk about, right? That are required to live as a warrior, whether it was, in ancient Japan or as a modern warrior, right? we've covered a lot of these things over the years. So I'm going to condense these things down, and the words will be different so as to not bore ego. Like I heard that before, but chances are you'll still have that feeling that you heard it before, right? But again, what I want to do over this 3-part series, specifically this one, is cover uh, or combine lessons from Ninjutsu, general warrior-based martial arts philosophy, toss in a couple of personal stories or anecdotes, and add some cultural wisdom to hopefully inspire or continue to inspire serious students to move beyond our comfort zones, right? To confront procrastination and to just grab a hold of the tail of the tiger, so to speak, or to embrace mindful, deliberate action. Um, I got this on both sides, right? Teachers from Mikyo side and the Ninpo side have echoed the same things, just gets vagueness, right? That we need to be more specific. We need to be more mindful and deliberate about how we go about doing things. And that is both or all, right? Thought, word, and in our actions. Okay. All right. So again, I got a bunch of notes up here. All right. So dun, 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 dun. All right. So the title of this, right? A ninja is defined by his or her actions, right? Or defined by action. I believe that warriors are defined by our actions. Um, Actually, in all honesty, all human beings are defined by action, right? We are at least products of our actions and will continue to be products of our actions, right? We're going to talk about in a bit why or how some people try to run contrary to that. Okay? Just like I think since the dawn of time, human beings have been trying to either negate, resist, or control nature. And here we are. Okay. So as we take a look at this meaning, right, or this kind of topic, right, a ninja is defined by action. We're going to take a look at, and again, a lot of these things we're going to look at during this episode are things that are recurring themes in one way or another uh, along the way. All right. So nothing new under the sun, but again, we're going to come at this from a little bit different angle, tying it into this wood snake, which is the character for the Chinese zodiac for 2025. Right. So that means we're going to have to take a look at, again, the literal meaning of action, right? And this idea of karma, and we're going to tie that into both martial arts and Buddhist or Mikyo philosophies of cause and effect, right? The universal constant, right? Change. Change is the one universal, unchanging constant, right? Which sounds backwards, but okay, cause and effect. So hopefully what this will equip everybody to do is to at least a little bit break through some procrastination, some habitual stall tactics that we use in ourselves, right? To face some personal and external obstacles, right? I've got some hands-on challenges for you in this one, okay? And then to take some deliberate action for growth and transformation moving into 2025. Okay, why wait? Right, a lot of people wait until January 1st to make their New Year's resolutions or to start acting on them. I don't understand why. I just once you decide, why not just start then, right? But that's me. Okay, but again, rather than focus on the doing, that a lot of students seem to resist for whatever reason. Perhaps they're comfortable and don't really need to do anything. Perhaps mastering ninjutsu and its total life mastery is, I don't know, just a nicety. Who knows? Only they do, right? But this episode is about letting go of things, right? Of doing nothing, which should make a lot of people happy. Doing nothing with a lot of the extras that are actually working against us. Right? Sometimes the doing that we need to do is to let go of, the weight that's pulling us to the bottom of the lake. Okay. So again, we're going to take a look at this wood snake. Well, as a matter of fact, we might as well just do it now. We'll take a look at this wood snake reference for 2025. Okay. So I'm going to briefly take a look at the connection between its symbolism and the themes of transformation, adaptability, bold action, warriorship, being a ninja, that kind of thing, right? And I know you're going to hear this a lot as things go on, because people in this realm or in related realms will just simply truncate it to it's the year of the snake, okay? But again, there are 5 different types of snakes, okay? So there's one for each of the Gogyo elements, and those, when I said they're conditioning elements, I do mean that, right? So the snake in and of itself is references certain things and reminds us of certain things, and we'll be using one of those characteristics through this episode. But each of the Gogyo elements puts a certain spin on it. Okay. So just very, very quickly, right, since we're here, the snake itself reminds us that to survive and thrive, not just to survive, right, not just to exist, okay, to live, to thrive, right, we must continually adapt and grow, right? And this is actually symbolized by a snake shedding its skin to grow, right? If a snake didn't shed its skin, it would choke itself, right? So it would be limited in size and speed and ability and whatnot. So it molts, right? It sheds its skin to grow, right? And I think that's a great analogy, right? So, but that molting process, right? This speaks to the necessity of stepping out of comfort zones and facing challenges head on. Okay. So the message, and I can't remember if I got this from Hatsumi-Sensei, Takamatsu-Sensei, or one of the master teachers. I just have it in my notes. If you want to truly embody the spirit of the ninja, you must commit to personal transformation. Start where you are, but start now. Okay. So if anybody knows who is generally or specifically credited with that, that'd be great. But I've trained with Sumeo, Oguri, Sena over the decades. I lost track of who said what. Okay, so the snake in general is this symbol of adaptation, transformation, growth. There's a lot of other things. We'll talk about more of those and how they're related to the ninja as well. Now, you got to remember, a lot of these Chinese symbols, the animals and whatnot, in the West, they tend to make us think of one thing, but the Eastern representation is very, very different, right? Like for the dragon, right? Most people think of like and just that kind of thing and go get him, but the dragon is actually more representative of grace and long life and adaptability and those kind of things. It's not the same, right? They're not these fire breathing creatures, right? And if they do have wings, they're very different. Right? So anyway, so that's the snake, right? The wood element in this context, right? Again, same kind of idea. The wood element represents progress. It represents transformation, and it reminds us that growth is a choice. Right. I know we're born and, we don't have any choice. We just grow. But we're not talking about that kind of growth, right? That's existence. Okay. That's out of our control. Right. It's just some other stuff that's in our control. Right. We used to have this thing that we had the kids learn at the dojo. It was it was a, you know, initials for things, but it spelled out I can. Right? I period C period A period N period. And what it meant was improvement is constant and never ending. Right? And it just played right into this idea of growth and progress and whatnot. Okay. So the wood element highlights the potential for growth and progress. Right. Growth does not happen passively. It requires deliberate effort and engagement. It also requires a sense of enduring and putting up with, right? Even that natural growth as we go from infant through childhood through, right? There's a certain period or periods in our life where we have quote unquote growing pains, where the body is growing so fast that there's pain because of parts of it trying to adjust to other parts doing a thing, right? I mean, it's literally morphing, right? And shifting and changing, right? So again, it doesn't happen passively, right? It requires deliberate effort and engagement, right? And so that's we're going to build on that as we move through these 3 episodes, but yeah. So again, I've got another one of these quotes. I think this one is from Hatsumi-Sensei, but again, if anybody has it, let me know. Right. So the quote that I have here is: "A ninja is not made through wishing or fandom. He or she is forged through action, persistence, and the willingness to overcome self-imposed limitations." I'm going to read that one more time. A ninja is not made through wishing or fandom. He or she is forged through action, persistence, and the willingness to overcome self-imposed limitations. Okay? So I'm going to admit something that other people are probably going to go, "Wow, man, you know how many episodes or how many sequels and whatnot they're on?" And as a matter of fact, one of my guys, Shoshi Golem, gave me or loaned me 3, I think 3 of the uh, John Wick movies some time ago, right? And he said, "Hey, I've watched them all multiple times. Just get them back to me, when you're done or whatever." And so yesterday, right, as my first full day to take some time for myself, I took enough time to watch the first John Wick. Right? And yeah, I'll watch the other ones, right? Not a problem. But as I was prepping for this episode and some of the things I wanted to cover, fortuitously or coincidentally or whatever, right? There was that shower scene. And for those of you who didn't see it, no, it's not that kind of shower scene, right? Where it's just showing his back with all that symbology that's on there as tattoos, right? And he has that big, string of words at the top, right? That translates to "fortune favors the bold." I know a lot of people associate it with the United States Marine Corps. It's used all over the place, right? But it's this really, really old quote, right? "Fortune favors the bold." Okay, and so I'm going to touch back on this a couple of times because I believe it's a mindset that if we're serious and if we're gonna dive into this, right? And for some of us, we're going to have to accelerate progress to make up for lost time or to get on with the new state of things. We'll talk about that as well, right? I think this needs to be emphasized. This is the mindset that needs to be emphasized, and we need to adopt for the new year. Okay, so I'm just going to frame it as a call of action, right? That I think aligns with the ninja's ethos of decisive and mindful action. Okay, um, here's something for the snake before I kind of shift things around here a little bit, because I've got, I think, 5 segments set up. I'm kind of trying to adjust the way I do things here a little bit, but we have covered over a couple of recent episodes this idea of indirect engagement with the opponent, with the enemy, right? when it comes to problem solving in our lives, right? If it's confusing in front of us, well, then shift perspective, right? Come at it from a different angle so that you can see it from a different side, right? And that often is the way that things uh, get solved. But from the perspective of the snake, right? Ninja operatives, right? Let's say they knew that the Nobunaga clan, led by the I don't know, the bastard son, and he wasn't really a bastard. He was just Nobunaga thought he was the weak one. He was actually the more intelligent one, but he was always getting slammed by his dad, and he was the first. He was the Nobunaga that attacked the Iga region first, right? Dad didn't give it a whole lot of thought, other than it might be in the way as he was conquering all of Japan, and he wanted to go after the next big territory, which the Iga range. Most people would know it today as the Iga and Koga regions. They're actually back to back, and it was because of a provincial change in designation. They ran this demarcation line right through the middle of it, and then you ended up with the Iga and Koga. But originally, this was just all one region. Okay, but anyway, that wasn't giving it much thought at the time. But Sun decided that to prove himself, he would, lead an army over there, and so to deal with this, right? I mean, they obviously had information that things were happening, and so like snakes, moved into the area and set themselves up, right? Just like a snake, when it's coming up on its prey, moves very, very slowly, very deliberately, right? To get into the perfect position so that when the time is right or it has that moment, it can act very, very quickly. Okay. And so that's the way ninja do things, right? That doesn't mean that we think on things forever. It doesn't mean we're looking for the perfect time or whatever, but we should already know what that is. Okay. So we're very deliberate about things, very mindful about them, but when it's time to act, it happens very, very quickly. Okay. Because that's what creates surprise, right? That's what takes the opponent by surprise, right? We don't move when he expects us to move. Right? We move when he's wondering when the hell we were going to move. Okay. I'll do that with students in the dojo when we're getting through that level. And, they've been doing things for a while, and I go at the same speed and I go at the same time. And then they bridge this rank gap. And we have these foam bats and shinai and all that. So I'll take up this position and I might flinch a couple of times or whatever. And then they're waiting. And inevitably, they will either say or relax their body as they say, or do something in a way that takes their mind off of the attack itself onto me, but not as the attacker. They're like, when are you going to go? And I go right in the middle of that thought, because that's when we're most vulnerable. We got bored. We got sidetracked. We got distracted, whatever. Okay? So when the enemy's confused, when it's trying to figure out at this weird pass, right, what's the best way to go? How the hell do we get these horses and wagons through here? Because this is narrow as shit, right? Go now, right? You don't let him figure things out, right? While he's moving around trying to figure us out, you take up your kamae, like a hira or something like that, or you stay in shizen, and he's trying to figure out what the hell, right? That's when you go, right? You don't go when he's all set in and he thinks he's got you figured out, or he starts moving in because he has a plan of action. Right? That's late. Right? Anyway, so fortune favors the bold. Right? We'll get into that as well. So let's just keep going with this. Actually, let me switch my little thing back here. James, any questions or comments that have popped up so far? I see we have more people that have signed in. Anybody else I need to say hi to before I jump into segment one?
Greg jumped on from Australia.
Awesome. Hey, Greg. All right. Is that it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'm going to switch over. James, I have added on a couple of things here where there's going to be some mentions of things that are on the website. So if you can just kind of pop the URLs up when that's time in the chat, so folks pay attention to those. I guess they'll show up for them in the comments. Yeah, maybe. Okay, all right, fair enough. So I did have a couple of those, but either way, we're going to sort through these. So let's just jump into segment 1 and keep on keeping on. Okay, so I mentioned this earlier, so we'll just start here, right? But the overall theme for this part of the episode is we're going to take a look at discussing the power of action. And while I have some commentary that I'm going to add to it afterwards, and a little bit as we go along, just a little bit for each one, what I really want to do is I want to spend a little bit of time taking a look at what Hatsumi-Sensei and Takamatsu-Sensei have said about some of these things, and also some things that I'm going to get into in a little bit, right? So again, these things are generally, these quotes that I have are generally about taking bold action, about overcoming obstacles. But please note, just about anything in Ninpo, right? They relate to real world challenges. It doesn't matter if we're talking about training, surviving actual real world, assaults or whatever, attaining goals, having successful relationships, those kind of things. Okay. So I'm just going to dive into these things because I have a lot and I want to keep this, within our time budget. Okay. So from Hatsumi-Sensei, we have, and these are in no particular order. I just, as they popped up, I just tossed them out there. Okay. So first one is move like smoke, flow like water, strike like lightning. Okay. So this quote, this lesson encapsulates or includes the idea of adaptability, decisiveness, and bold action. Okay? It hopefully encourages us to stop hesitating and move in harmony with the situation rather than overthinking or resisting. Right? Opportunity pops up. It fits in with our goal, agenda, our moving forward, our growth, that kind of thing. We snatch that thing like a snake who doesn't know when the next mouse is going to come along, and therefore the next meal is going to come along. Okay. Way too many people spend way too much time waiting until the situation is perfect. Right. I've got some exercises later that should hopefully get over a lot of these freaking excuses that I don't have the time, I don't have the money, there's nothing I can do. Bullshit. Right. I've reduced the things that can be done to the simplest, no need for time other than to carry this little piece out. Money, nothing like that. And it fits absolutely in with not only a warrior, not only a ninja, but the general, the jonin, the commander of an army, the commander of a ninja clan, the commander of one's life. Okay. All right. So number 2, the essence of Budo is to train the mind and the body to overcome any obstacle. The only true opponent is within. Hatsumi-Sensei's words, not mine. I live by them, but I didn't come up with this, right? This is a direct call to confront internal barriers and self-doubt as the first step towards mastery, right? In the Togakure school, Seishin Teki Kyoyo, spiritual refinement, personal development, the learning of, the development of, and the ability to use the skills necessary and to have the personal character traits necessary to do the rest of the art. It's the reason it comes first. Okay. So this ties the concept of action and boldness to overcoming personal limitations. Right. Next, I guess it's number 3, right? In battle, hesitation is death. To be a ninja is to act decisively, even in uncertainty, even when we're not sure that that's the right thing to do. Right? Shinobi Monstrum a long time ago, we were doing a seminar, and he led off with this whole idea of decisiveness. Right? He said, warriors are people of action. We make decisions. It's what we do. And, inevitably there's always the question, yeah, but what if we decide wrong? Said you'll know in a second, right? But if something looks right, you start on it. But people are afraid to do that because they're afraid of failure, but they forget that the premise of the ninja is adaptability. If I suddenly start to realize that this is not the right path, I make another decision. Adaptability is changing on the fly. Can you imagine a football player? I don't care if we're talking about universal football, soccer, right, or American football, and there's a play, and the running back gets the ball handed to him, or whatever, right? One of these guys, they catch the ball, a receiver catches it. They see the goal, right? They just see one part of the end zone or the goal, whatever, right? And they just beeline for it, right? And no matter who comes at them to steal the ball, take it from them, tackle them, kick it away from them, or whatever, they just ignore it and keep on going. No, they make adjustments all the way. It's almost never a straight line. But people fear making decisions as though that's it, right? They're gonna, right? Fire, ready, set. No, that's not the way it works. Okay. So this is the theme of the episode. If you saw the graphic that I sent out with the emails, I posted on social media, all that kind of stuff. This was the quote that led at the very top. Okay. It is a very succinct, very direct, very powerful message about the importance of stepping forward with courage, even when the outcome isn't clear. Right. Well, I want to do something. I want to move, or I don't know what to do. Okay. You don't know. You not even ask somebody. Right. That's not even on the list of things that could be. I mean, with the advent of the internet, seriously, I can't contact somebody who has the belt level or the skills or whatever that I want and say, I'm in this kind of position. Can you relate to that? Is this where you started, or did you have any students who started here, or do you know any other instructors who started in this same position that can help me move forward? Because I don't know what to do. What can I do first? What do I do next? Okay. Seriously, that's not even part of the battle plan. Right. So, right. But if we do know, a lot of people get caught up in procrastination, but procrastination born of indecision. I could do this, this, or this, but they're all like the same. No one's better than the other. No one's worse than the other. I just don't know which one to pick. Pick one. Well, what if I'm wrong? Then stop doing that thing and pick another one. If they're all the same and you don't know which one is actually the better one, and you could start with either one of them, pick one. These are things that should be taught in school. And I believe that if warriorship led school curriculum, people wouldn't fail so much because it would hurt. And two, they would be better critical thinkers and decision makers, and things would be less subjective. I don't like that. Nobody cares. Okay? I don't have to like some of the skills that I've learned, but if I didn't learn them and I need them and I don't have them, I will die. So this is not a matter of liking or not liking. Okay. Anyway, number next, be like the wind, unseen but unstoppable, unbound by hesitation or fear. Again, these are Hatsumi-Sensei quotes. Okay. So this metaphor encourages fluidity and the audacity to act with purpose, free of self-imposed constraints. Well, I can't do that. I'm not that kind of person. In this instance, you might want to think about being that kind of person, because your normal default, not going to work. Okay. So that's why we take a look at, especially in Mikyo, that all of these characters and whatnot on the mandala, I know people like to see them as these outward kind of things, and that's why they choose to do it or not do it, whatever. But we can just get our head around the possibility this might have been ancient psychology, and these things all reflect, at least in part, aspects within ourselves that if we could hone them to a degree of ability and functionality and whatnot, then there is no situation that we can encounter that isn't in the midst of killing us that we can't handle, that we can't solve. Okay. So be like the wind, unseen but unstoppable, unbound by hesitation or fear. Okay. Again, you're going to hear this a lot, right? This whole getting over self-imposed constraints, habits, habit patterns, those kind of things, right? The way of the ninja is one of enduring, surviving, and prevailing over all that would destroy one. Right? Again, it emphasizes adaptability and living in the present moment. And then finally, let's do one more from Hatsumi-Sensei. Blame is a shackle. Freedom lies in taking action despite limitations. Okay? This one encourages stepping beyond external excuses. Right? You have no idea how I, and I'm sure so many other instructors, are tired of hearing people tell us why they can't do it. And even when we share, look, I started out in the same place or a worse place or whatever, and I was able to do this to get there. They're going to tell me, well, that's an old idea. That's not how it really works. There's an old quote that goes, those who say it can't be done, or those who say that it doesn't work, should stop bothering the people that are actually doing it. Okay. All right. Let's shift over to Takamatsu-Sensei. All right. So from him, we have these little gems. All right. So number one, the mind is the true weapon. Those who lack the will to act have already lost. All right. So this is a punch in the gut kind of quote that points to the need to harness mental clarity and boldness to overcome challenges. There's far too many people waiting for somebody else to come in as a savior and do the hard work. Okay. Number two, courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to face it head on. James, how often do I say that? Okay. Brave people are not fearless. They are able to operate regardless of whether the fear is there or not. Okay. It's not an immobilizing fear. Okay. So this really is a deep one, right? This points to the true nature of bravery, resonating with those of us who need or needed to let go of the fear of even growth. Yes, that's an actual thing. The fear of success. Okay? Some people have fallen into the trap or inherited it from other people, their peer group, their family, whatever, where it's the us against them mentality, right? All those people over there that are well-to-do, well, they're only well-to-do because they're corrupt. Successful people got there by manipulation, they're holding us down or whatever. And then the opportunity comes up. Oh, I can't be one of those. I can't be one of them. Right? I want it. Oh, but what will all my friends say about that? We've mentioned that in the past. I'll talk about that later. Okay. So this really again, I'm pointing out movies tonight, right? So reminds me of a quote from the old Ghostbusters movie, the original one, way back, right? So they're getting kicked out of the university, right? And Bill Murray's character is confidently saying, "No worries, don't worry about it, right? We can just go to work and make more money in the private sector, right? And just find a company and do our stuff out there, right?" And Ray, this really smart but dopey character, right, says, "No, you don't understand. I've worked in the private sector. They expect results." Right? It's just this funny line, right? Which just really points to the fact that they've been screwing off and hiding behind, the university walls and doing studies. Yeah, great. Okay. So it's the same reason that there are so many naysayers, right, who make comments during these episodes or on other videos or whatever, right? Pushing their own, yeah, buts, you don't understand, whatever, their little comments, right? Without having any proof on their own that their point of view is actually right and produces the success that they want or should have or whatever, right? No matter what they do, say, or think, right? I know, because every once in a while, James and I have a laugh because we go follow somebody's comment to their profile and see what they actually have. And anyway, Like the old saying, and again, I mentioned this before, those who are busy saying how something can't be done should stop bothering those who are actually doing it, right? And that this same thing goes for overcoming fear, circumnavigating the corruption, the manipulation. It's the man that's holding me down, whatever. Okay. Yeah, no. Hopefully you can see a consistent line through here that both Hatsumi Sensei and Takamatsu Sensei have pointed to. Before we blame external sources, just take a really hard damn look in the mirror. Right? So, number next, the flower that blooms in adversity is the most beautiful of all. I know it sounds very poetic, doesn't it? Right? But it reinforces the idea that hardship and bold action lead to the most profound growth and a stronger you in the process. Right? There's an analogy that I use quite a bit that's involved, that's kind of centered around sword making. Right? Everybody loves to see a nice Japanese sword, or most of us like seeing any kind of sword, right? Shiny blade, sharp edge, nice decorative wrapping, scabbard, all that kind of stuff, right? But how much brutality went into producing not just this weapon that could be used for killing, but something that could be appreciated as a work of art, right? This iron being melted, or not melted, but heated, right, to white hot, and then just pounded on and refolded and reheated and pounded on until you got this shape, and then it's quenched, and that puts a shit ton of stress on it, and then it's ground on, right, just to get the edge on, and then there's more heating and more scraping and all that to get all these impurities out and all these things that would make it break, right, on the battlefield to make it as strong as possible, right? Now, as a part of this analogy, there's also the reality that I think the last thing I saw in a documentary was only like 20% of the blades that a blacksmith sets out to make end up not being pieces of freaking metal back on the floor, because they fail at some point in the making process, because the metal has too many impurities. They weren't mindful and they didn't get enough out, whatever. Right? And then when it comes time to pressure testing, whether it's that oil or water quench or whatever, it cracks, shatters, chips, whatever. Okay. Oh, this is one of my favorites. I love this one. To see the system as your master is to give it power it does not have. Become the master of your own system. Again, that's Takamatsu-Sensei. Okay. This is a lesson on self-reliance and reclaiming power. It also points out the cognitive dissonance here, where one claims to be his or her own master. Nobody owns me. Nobody tells me what to do, right? You're not the boss of me. Huh? That kind of stuff, right? But right out of the other side of their mouth, they make excuses about the lack of control or success they have by blaming others, external factors, the system, or the corrupt rich people, all these other people that supposedly are controlling their life, but nobody controls them. Right. Again, it's one of my favorite things, right? Things only have the power that we give them. Now, does that mean that there aren't laws? No, of course not. Okay. But that doesn't remove our responsibility for acting and getting things done in spite of them. So here's what we have to deal with. What are we gonna do? Okay. All right. Number next. Right. Now, again, these are still from Takamatsu-Sensei. Victory is not determined by a single moment, but by the accumulation of moments well lived. Okay? As a reminder to focus on the present to shape a better future. Right? To focus on the tried and true, simple things consistently. Right? The basics done consistently produce the huge result. Magnanimous success and those kind of things, right? I don't care how good somebody is, if what they're doing is inconsistent. James sees this all the time, as well as other instructors at the school. students practice things haphazardly all over the place, right? And so we're correcting the same damn things every class, right? So anyway, right? Like if I were to ask students, right? Because ego will jump to that talking about that guy, right? And Shidoshi Malmstrom used to always say, if you're wondering whether I'm talking to you or not, or you don't think I'm talking to you, I'm not talking to the guy next to you. Okay. So if I were to ask a simple question to the egos that have already said, well, I'm consistent, right? Okay. Did you practice your sanchin today? Your kamae, your rolling, something, right? That is basics, right? That is the foundational pieces. It's not beginner stuff. It's the stuff that is in everything else, right? You don't need a partner for any of these things. All right. Not beleaguering or belaying any of these things. I want to keep moving through, right? So again, from Takamatsu-Sensei, right? Time is a blade that cuts without pause. You must learn to wield it, or it will wield you, right? Again, it should be pretty obvious. This is a metaphor for mastering time and avoiding waste, especially wasting time, right? Again, there are many more that we could pull from, but we'll just finish with this one. The greatest deception is believing the enemy is always external. The most dangerous enemy lies within. Okay? It's a simple lesson on conquering internal fears, self-limiting beliefs, and getting out of our own damn way. That's why I'm constantly going through other programs and whatnot, and trying to figure out what do I do now and how do I move that way. And all right, we're gonna jump into this one and do this for a little bit, see how that's producing results and those kind of things, right? But I still get in my own way. Right? So I've just learned over the years that that's the first place I look. Okay? That doesn't mean there aren't people out in the world that irritate me, but it's a good chance to practice things like endurance and compassion. Some people that really, I still struggle with that one, especially when respect means compassion. But either way, right? So let's go back to the title. Okay? The title was a ninja, right? The ninja. It's this action thing, right? We're people of action, right? We're defined by our actions. Okay, so we're gonna have to roll this way back, right, to the idea of karma, right? When we're talking about action, consequence, those kind of things, right? So if we just simply break down karma and look at that word, it's a Sanskrit word, karma, right? It's actually based on a older Pali word, kama, Kamma. So if you're ever reading something, whether it's on meditation or anything like that, and you see the word kama, if you see Kama, that means love. Kamma, right? You're probably looking at, and you see words like that where is it Durga? Is it Dukkha? Is it right? There's a subtle difference between Pali and Sanskrit, but one's not right, one's not wrong. It's kind of like when I came back from being stationed in South Korea a bunch of years ago. See the gray? Bunch. I had learned that these noodles, these long noodles that you cook in a broth and you can add certain things to and whatnot, right? They're called ramyun. Ramyun, ramyun. Okay. And I come back and I hear people saying ramen, and I see it on packages, and I'm like, it's not ramen, it's ramyun, right? Well, the little piece of ignorance that was getting in my way was ramen is the way to say, well, it's ramyun, but it's in Japanese. But both of them are a different language's way of saying lo mein, the Chinese. right? Lomain. So the Japanese, there's no L's in the Japanese language. So they can't say Lomain. So they say Ramen. Okay? And the Koreans say Ramyun, because the Japanese had a heavy influence on their language before the Koryo dynasty kicked their asses out, and Korea is named after that dynasty or dynasty, however you want to pronounce it, that did that thing. But the Japanese, right, just whole history of Japan invading and whatnot, and when they invaded, they tried to crush the Korean language. So there's a whole bunch of things that kind of cross over. Anyway, so again, if we're looking at this idea of karma, right, there's all kinds of weird Western things that have been thrown at this, right? It's karma, it's fate, it's destiny, right? It's bad juju that we cast on somebody or whatever. Oh, dude, hope karma gets your ass, right? Well, guess what? I just created something where karma will probably get my ass in a different way as well. Okay. So karma, the word karma itself simply means action. Right? It's a heavy focus in Buddhist and therefore Mikkyo perspectives, that kind of thing, right? So, but it points to the universal concept of cause and effect. Okay. But at the same time, before I continue on with that, it's not the action that is good or bad, right? Karma itself is not good or bad. Karma, action, is neutral, right? Okay. That's why when you dive into learning this stuff, you recognize, or you learn very quickly, that there's several different types of karma, right? There's the primary cause, there's secondary conditioning causes, all kinds of things, right? Just like there's at least 4 or 5 different types of effects, right? So it's not the action, right? It's the intent behind the action that makes something good or moral or ethical or evil or whatever, okay? As a constant reminder in class, right? Sensei, one of the Japanese daishihan, is constantly reminding students. This is just burned into my mind from decades of hearing this, right? He uses English. It's going to sound a little weird because he uses Japanese syntax to speak English, but your brain will get wrapped around it. What he says is, good action do, good situation make. Bad action do, bad situation make. Right? So it's really about the intent. Okay. And again, this goes back to what I was mentioning earlier when somebody says, I can't do that. That's not me. I'm not that kind of person. It's not about you. What's necessary in the moment to stop that violence, to change the course of things that are going in a bad way, or what's necessary right now to make this a better situation. Right? So, but this doesn't make us like heartless drones or anything like that. On the contrary, right? It's how do we produce better results? Okay, not self-serving results, better results. Right? It's win-win-win. Right? Not just win-win. All right. So again, action, huge. Right? Warriors are people of action, and since ninja, shinobi, are higher order of warriors because we don't require a literal battle on a literal battlefield, right? For our techniques to be applicable, right? You take battlefield tactics onto the street or into everyday life, you're going to jail, right? Or you're going to lose family members or whatever, right? But Ninpo is very, very different, right? As a matter of fact, I just had an individual, right? I'm hoping that he's misguided, right? But as a comment under one of my Whiteboard Wednesdays, he listed that a 10th dan in Ninpo Taijutsu would only be a shodan in Budo Taijutsu, Bujinkan. After my brain stopped being locked up trying to figure out that whole thing, I thanked him for re-educating me and apologized because I had only been in training for 10 years. So I'll do better to, be more worthy of the higher rank. Anyway, right. So again, we do our thing, right? But we have to remember also that our life is a litmus test. Our life is a reflection of those actions. And when I say actions, most people think of taiden. They think of the body doing things. Actions come in many flavors. Our thoughts are actions. Right? Thinking is an action, right? Our words, whether written, spoken, in our head, out loud, written out on paper, whatever, all actions. Okay? And the one thing about karma that everyone needs to remember is that all karma, once set into motion, must play itself out. Okay? Now, I'm going to say unless acted upon by another karmic force equal or stronger, but that conditioning karma doesn't stop the other one. It may minimize it. It may make it play out faster or slower. But rule number one, all karma, any karma, once set into motion, must play itself out, which means we will pay the piper. We will face the consequences. We will enjoy the benefits or consequences of that karmic action at some point. And again, there's different types of effects. This is not that kind of lesson because there's effects that are the same, they're similar, they're all kinds of things, right? So anyway, all right. So, but here's the thing, right? There's this misconception about this action thing, okay? And that has to do with like choosing not to act. Okay. Well, if I don't do anything, then there's no karma. Then I don't have to worry about anything. Right? People use this as a crutch all the time, right? Like, okay, I'm going to wait until there's a good time to do it. And then many people live by this premise. Right? They live by the premise that, spoken or not, that if they don't choose or don't act, then they're free from the consequences because they didn't act. But choosing not to act is still an action because we made a choice. All right? So it's a huge thing, right? This prevalent mindset that prevents people from taking accountability for their lives, for their training, for their progress, for their success, for living the kind of life they want to live, right? Both in martial arts training and everywhere else, right? It's like lying around on the couch, binge watching Netflix thinking, I don't want to do anything, right? But the person is doing something, right? They're binge watching Netflix, right? What they don't want to do is work on something. They don't want to do something that requires more effort than what they're putting in the moment. Right? But either way, it's an action. Right? It's them laying on the couch, binge watching Netflix. Right? What that's saying, right, with actions, not words, is if I ever need these skills, or the house to not fall down, or to have any more money than just what covers the day-to-day bills to be paid, right? Like an emergency popping up or whatever, right? I'm okay with not being able to handle that situation. I know they're not saying that, right? There will always be someone else to blame when one or more of those things actually happens. I get it. Right? But what if we recognize the truth that, and this is not my truth, this is not my teacher's truth that passed it on to me. This is a universal truth. Right? Personal truths, you know what they're called? Opinions. Right? They're called comforting beliefs. Right? A belief is not a truth. A belief is something we hold on to and use to navigate situations where we don't have evidence one way or the other that something is true. That's why people can have opposite beliefs and still get things done. Right? Right? People often say, "Don't blame me. I didn't vote for him." Or, in fact, I don't even vote, so I'm not to blame for any of this mess. But that choice, intentional mental volition, is an action. To choose to not choose is a choice. And itself still produces results, situations, and consequences one way or the other. Right? Just like if you saw a punch coming at your face and you chose to not move, right? This is the mentality of the childish, the blaming afterwards, right? Is he hit me, right? Well, you didn't move. Did you see it coming? Yeah. And you stood there. Yeah. But you saw it coming. Yeah. So you're going to complain because he hit you, right? I blame him for throwing a punch, right? I understand he intended to hit you, but we're warriors. We're training in the martial arts. If you saw it coming and you still got hit, then bad action do, bad situation make. Oh, let's see. Let's keep on with this truth here, and then I'll open things up to questions and comments. Okay, so here's the truth about not choosing. Okay, I already mentioned this. Inaction is still action. The act of choosing not to act is itself a volitional action. Right? It's the second chain on the 12-fold chain of dependent origination. It's another way to explain karma, cause and effect, right? It reflects a deliberate decision. Now, that decision is often based on things like fear or avoidance or stubbornness or laziness or ignorance. But either way, this decision, like any other action, any other choice, plants karmic seeds and creates outcomes. Okay? For example, choosing not to intervene in a conflict may keep you safe in the moment, but it could also lead to negative consequences later, right? Feeling guilty, feeling resentment, or enabling somebody who is doing the harmful behavior, whatever, right, to continue to do it because they didn't encounter consequences that would make them think twice the next time. Okay? There's also the illusion of escape. Right? Again, many people believe that by abstaining from choice or action, they're absolving themselves of responsibility for the outcomes. Not my fault. Okay? But karma, action, consequence, cause and effect, right, operates regardless of intent. The intent makes something a good action or a bad action. But the action itself, it's kind of like, do we really think that billiard balls, right, if I hit one with a stick and it rolls in a certain direction because of the contact and angle and whatnot, the effect on that ball, hitting another ball that causes that ball to hit another, do they have emotion? Do they have concepts of good? No, they're inanimate objects. Okay? But once I set that cue ball into motion, it's going to carry out that force and that effect, whether there's anything in its way or not. It may bump off a bumper or whatever until the steam runs out. Okay? But it will continue on in that direction. Right? Put a little English on it, then it's going to spin in a certain way that as it accelerates or decelerates, it will hook around. I know they're getting all like physics geeky on you. Anyway, right? So whether you act or not, there's an effect. Doesn't matter. Okay? So this is like standing still in the current of a river. Okay, that's inaction, right? I'm not doing anything. Okay, that doesn't stop the flow of the river. It doesn't stop the current. It just means that you're going to get carried along by forces outside your control. Right? So the ninja's perspective on this is that a ninja recognizes that every decision or lack thereof shapes his or her life and the lives of others. Right? It's impossible to lift ourselves up or pull ourselves down without affecting everyone else connected to us, and secondarily and tertiarily, those connected to them. Right? Lift up, pulled it. It's like where the intersection are not in a net. If we lift up on it, it doesn't disconnect. It's not a magic trick, right? Pulls the entire net toward us. Same thing with pulling it down, right? So we're either pulling people down around us or lifting people up around us. Okay. So the skill of choosing wisely is central to mastery. Right? I don't know if anybody's ever sat down and like listed out the skills necessary for mastery to take place. They're on the mandala. Right? Even when a ninja decides not to engage, it is a conscious, strategic decision with a full awareness of potential outcomes, where that could go. James, was it this year or was it last year? I lose track of time. Where we did we actually did a free webinar leading into one of the Mikyo programs, the 7 characteristics of an enlightened mind, or the 7 elements of an enlightened mind. Do you remember that?
I think it was this year.
Was it this year? Yeah. So one of those 7 elements, or one of those 7 characteristics, is understanding karma, right? Being able to look at anything, person, place, activity, experience, or whatever, and knowing what karmic forces produce that, and knowing what that thing will in turn produce in the future unless acted upon by other karmic forces. Okay. It's like, oh, I'm this old. I'm this old. I have nothing I can do at this point. Right. I'm what I am. Well, alrighty then. Well, if that's what you believe and you don't take any action to change it, then you're right. Congratulations. That's called a self-fulfilling prophecy. Okay. I'm injured. I'm, older, whatever. I'm having a problem doing the stuff I used to do when I trained in ninjutsu 20 years ago. Well, no shit. No shit. Right? What can you do today? Maybe being a genin ninja, because if that was the fantasy, then there's a big reason why we're not going to do it. Well, if I can't be a genin ninja, what's the point? It's kind of like in the state of Pennsylvania. I don't know where you live, but in our state, in our Commonwealth, the only type of marijuana that's legal, and I don't want to hear anything about fair, not fair, whatever. I'm not getting involved in the conversation. I'm just pointing out facts. Okay. It's medical marijuana. Medical use is the only legal use for marijuana. But there's a long list of laws that go along with that. Okay. One of the big ones that a lot of people, some people that I know very personally, right, violate on a regular basis is that it's illegal in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to light up medical marijuana. Right? You have to vape it. There are these little devices, right, that you vape it, right? As soon as you light up medical marijuana, you make it illegal. Okay? Now, I tell certain people this, and the first response I get from some of them is, well, what's the point? I thought the point was medical. So they want to cut down on the THC and the level or type of high you get. Yes, we want the pain and all those other medical benefits from these certain chemicals that are in it, right, to do their job. But if the first response I get is, what's the point? Because the person just wanted to get high. It had nothing to do with the medical benefits. It was an escapism thing. That speaks volumes, because that tells me they didn't get it for medical reasons. They got it because they found a legal way to do something that they wanted to do so that they didn't have to do much at all. They didn't have to develop certain skill sets to handle anxiety, problematic situations, nothing like that, right? It's just escapism 101. Okay. It is what it is, right? Again, just facts. I'm not getting into a debate about something that eventually doesn't have any effect on somebody mentally, right? the fact that it's a crutch, and I'm not getting into a conversation with somebody about whether or not it's a bridge to something worse. Because we all know that once somebody stops helping you, if you really do need somebody else to do all the hard work, you'll just find somebody else. Not you. I'm just sorry. As a third person. Okay. Anyway, again, this what else do I have in here? Choosing wisely. As an example, that choosing to evade or ignore an attacker or a potential attacker's threats or insults or whatever, rather than to fight, right? Choose to ignore rather than to fight. It's not inaction. It's a tactical decision to prioritize survival over confrontation. Right? Does that mean that we can't or won't? No. Right? All right. So it's also a universal law, right? The choice to avoid responsibility doesn't exempt anyone from the laws of cause and effect. Not choosing is still choosing, and not acting is still an action, right? Well, I'm not doing something. Yes, you are. You're standing still. If you were doing nothing, you'd be dead. Only dead people do nothing. Huh? You're existing, you're living, you're avoiding, not you, because you guys are all enlightened, right? You're avoiding, you're postponing, you're, right? I'm not moving. Yeah, you are. You're telling me that you're not moving. Right? You're in insistence mode. Right? So again, this aligns with Buddhist and therefore Mikyo understanding of karma, even thoughts or intentions. Volitional mental actions carry weight and consequences. Right? Daydreaming, playing out a play in your head about what you're going to say to that person when the fucker comes around you again. Okay? Yeah, there you go. What could you be doing in that moment other than, like, carrying out something you're going to do later? So the empowering perspective is that instead of seeing this truth as limiting or frightening, right, it's actually really empowering. Because if every choice has an impact, then every moment is an opportunity to shape your life and your world. Right? If every choice has an impact, we become more mindful about the choices and actions we take. Right? Even small, mindful actions can redirect the trajectory of our circumstances. Right? The simple act of saying no to somebody that we drop everything to do whatever they want, even if they hint, because, well, I don't want them to be mad at me. Okay? It's amazing how that little thing, well, that could turn into a huge argument. Not for very long. Not if you walk away. Well, that'll make them even more pissed off. Look, the more pissed off you can make somebody, the faster that energy cooks off and they'll get tired. They may pick it up again later or walk away. Eventually, they'll get the idea that they should probably talk to you differently, or maybe they'll want to discuss not being with you because you won't comply, right? Because they'll have to admit that you're not doing what they want you to do, that you're not their slave. You're not being slave-like. They won't use those words, right? But for a warrior to be in a non-mutually beneficial relationship, bad action do, bad situation make. I'm sorry. Right? Avoiding a difficult conversation doesn't eliminate conflict. It often amplifies it, creating larger consequences down the line. That's just the opposite. I know I said walking away, right? But I'm not avoiding the conversation. I'm avoiding being yelled at like a dog. I'm avoiding allowing somebody to do something to me that I can't reciprocate in kind without them crying foul. And because I'm a guy and they might be a girl, or I don't know, some protected class or whatever, and they can just cry foul, and then I have to worry about domestic violence charges, hate speech, bullshit, all kinds of stuff, when it's okay for them to yell and shriek because, well, I have to understand they were angry. But I can't be angry. Oh, I can be angry. I just can't do it that way. That's not a mutually beneficial relationship. Okay? You can draw your sword on me, then I can draw my sword in response. And if I can't draw my sword, it better be because I don't have one, or I don't have the time to draw it, in which case other actions will be necessary. Because either way, I'm going to neutralize this conflict, at least momentarily. So we can sit down at the negotiation table. And if that's not possible, then the other person doesn't want a mutually beneficial relationship. Thank you for being honest. And since I do, we're not a good fit. Okay. So, let's see. I'm just going to skip over that part right there. Let's see. Let's go. Reflection in martial arts training. A student who skips practice isn't just skipping a class. They're choosing to delay their growth, weaken their discipline, and miss opportunities for skill building. Right? As Hiroshi Malmstrom always said, if you don't have a skill or that skill sucks and you need it in a self-defense situation, you die. Nagata-sensei says those things too. Oh, you need something and you don't have it, or this you do this wrong. Except he's more nonchalant about it. He just goes, you die. Sometimes he laughs about it and goes on to the next thing. Right? Because that's universal justice. The ninja absolutely believes in universal justice. Okay? Good action do, good situation make. Bad action do, bad situation make. Okay? Okay. So also in a self-defense encounter, right? Freezing or hesitating in the face of danger is also a choice. Okay? It can mean life or death. Now, wait, I froze. I got surprised. That's a choice. Well, see, the freezing or the choice could be the inability, as in unwillingness, to act because of who the attacker is. Being attacked by somebody you absolutely love and can't bring yourself to hurt. Or it could have been a result of a choice made months or years ago when we avoided sparring or randori training or pressure testing and decision making under pressure, that kind of thing, which would have eliminated the hesitation or the stall reflex. Okay? Didn't come out of nowhere. Okay? And if we don't reprogram the system to make sure that the flinch responses are ones that serve us and not the ones out of the cave, you die. Right? Right? Again, there's all kinds of excuses, right? People say, but even if I don't have the time to train, the money to train, or to register for a program, or to enroll under a teacher, whatever, right? The list goes on and on and on, right? Trust me, I've got a list, right? Choosing to sit down and make a list of what my limitations are. I don't have enough money, okay? And list out a few steps that I could take right now to move toward eliminating each one or that specific one. I don't have time, okay? List what limitations do I have? Everybody tries to work on making those things. Like, I don't have money. Okay? I need to come up with money. Okay? I don't have any time. I need to come up with time. Well, you can't make time. Okay. So next to each one of those things, what can I do or what can I eliminate? If I were a business and I needed to make more money, well, there's only two ways to do that. Okay? I make more sales or I cut expenses. Right? If I need more time, I either work longer hours or I delegate certain tasks that are menial and I don't really need to be doing them, right, to somebody else so that I can focus on the stuff that I need to do to move things forward, right? All things are like that, right? There's either things you can do or things that you can cut, right? To get that thing. But people stop at, I don't have the blank to train, to register, to enroll, okay. Right now. Karma right now, this is manifesting like this now. It's not a forever thing. Put it on the list. Now, what do I need to do, create, minimize, or eliminate, or avoid that will allow for that thing to no longer be a problem? All right. Let's see. So, from a historical concept or context, a ninja on a mission who hesitates or fails to act when the opportunity arises may miss their chance entirely, jeopardizing their mission and their clan. We just covered this in a KUDEN just here recently. Okay, from a personal, modern, 21st century perspective, where our clan might be our family. Okay, that same thing is true for letting our family go without whatever, because we can't get out of our own self-serving comfort zones or willingness to change, develop new skills, adapt to the situation, shed our skin, right? All those things that are getting in the way, right? All right. So what you could do, if you so choose, and maybe some of you have already started on this, is reflect on where you've been avoiding decisions or actions in your lives or in your life, right? Are you mistaking inaction for freedom? Right? Are you aware of the consequences that your inaction is creating? Right? All I'm saying is that by embracing this truth, it will give you control. By taking responsibility for every choice, action or inaction, you can begin to shape your circumstances consciously and produce something very, very different. Right? So this is the mindset of a true ninja. It's not about perfection, but about conscious, deliberate action or non-action, right? Aligned with your highest values and goals. Because your actions ultimately tell everybody, right? Even if you try to cover it up, it tells everybody what our highest values and goals are in any moment. Right? Remember, not choosing is still a choice. Procrastination is often a decision to avoid discomfort rather than move toward growth. Right? I had a student one time who every year, we were planning on going to Japan, right? He would tell me, same thing. Couldn't make it this year for this year's training, right? But he'd definitely be going the next year. Just needed some extra time, get some things together, put the money together and all that kind of stuff, right? He'd be going next year. Right? I ended up telling him at one point, procrastination has a really wonderful effect and benefit for him. He would swear it wasn't procrastination. Right? But to address his confusion, what I said was, we think our delaying for tomorrow, next week, right, next month, next year, whatever, is giving us time to save for the trip, to do the thing. But for most, what it does is relieve the cognitive dissonance, and it relieves us of the worry of having the discussion again with the teacher and that discomfort and having to come up with the excuses or the story or whatever, right? Until next year or whatever it is we're doing next week, next month, whatever. Okay. But at that time, right, all it did was relieve pressure. All it did was give us breathing room to not have to think about it until next year, to which they'll probably say the same thing. He did this year after year until finally, after 9 years, he finally admitted that he would probably never be going to Japan because he doesn't do anything, and he probably won't do anything to put all the stuff together. So where in your life, where in my life, right, Where in our lives, right? Where do we delay action? Where do you delay action? Right? What makes you procrastinate? Right? So, anyway, often people don't know where to start, or they've got, they're surfing YouTube, or they got all these lessons or whatever, or they have an overinflated sense of confidence about where they are, not really understanding or wanting to think about the standards by which they were promoted to a certain rank. So often what people need, even if even if they don't have the money or wherewithal or even desire, right, at the moment, right, to train with somebody, right, and they still think that scrolling YouTube, whatever, right, is the best route, right? You can at least have a framework and a curriculum to follow to give you, at least a proven, organized track or path to follow, right? Every instructor has one. Some are subjective, some are solid. I think ours are pretty solid because it's all written down, and according to the word I've been getting from Japan, a lot of new soke are leaning in that direction. So I think long gone are going to be the days where people got ranked because they were good heart or because they were around for a certain amount of time or whatever. Okay. So, but anyway, if that's something you're interested in, you don't already have it, James, if you could pop up the URL for the student workbooks, student study workbooks that we have, that'd be awesome. Right. That way, if folks want that, I mean, we've got all 5 leading from white belt to black belt, and then there's another one for the Shodan and Nidan area as well. And go ahead and put up the one that takes them to where we're literally giving away module 1. Right? I'm okay if people just take it and whatever. Okay, it's the risk of doing what I do. Right? People are going to take that one and then not have to worry about anything else or whatever. That's fine. But just know when you sign up to get that one for free, it's going to make the offer that you can get the other ones as well. You can just ignore it, right? Unless you want to put whatever into context as to how we would lay it out, because it's one of the few mapped out curriculum out there. Okay, before we jump into the next one, let's see. Let me jump back over here. James, questions, comments, complaints, shut the fuck ups, anything like that? Can you really fight? Dumbass questions?
No questions. Just Jimmy said konbanwa and Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And Richard says hello, and Merrill says good evening.
Awesome. Welcome, guys. All right. Well, in that case, while you're popping that up for them, I'm going to jump into next part. Okay. So let's call this obstacles as tools. Okay. So let's start off by taking a look at the ninja's view of obstacles. Okay. So it's really just to summarize the whole thing, right? The mindset is of seeing challenges as opportunities to grow. All right. I know people hate to hear that at work and stuff, right? Now, it's not a problem. It's an opportunity. Bullshit, right? Now, the reason that people try to pull that little thing, one, they might really be trying to get you to see it as an opportunity for growth, but that doesn't make it not a problem. And for the people that focus on the problem, it doesn't make it not an opportunity, right? Because what we think about problems, not my job, we just toss it at somebody else, well, then we have a problem. Okay. Now we have a different problem. Okay. I have a student who's who has a family member that was living with them and didn't like the rules of the house. So they thought they'd hurt the parents by leaving. They were more than old enough. Okay. But they forgot that they were working a part-time job and contributing to the bills of the house. So yes, that hurt the parents but now they're back. But did they bring the money back? No, because in their heated my way or the highway kind of thing, yeah, they were pissed at people at work too, so they quit. Oh, and then their car got shut off because they were making payments on this car, but the company put this device in the car that if you defaulted on your payments, they could remote turn it off, right? So you couldn't hide your car from the repossession people. You just couldn't turn it on. Oops. Right? So you showed those people. Meanwhile, this is like trying to push somebody over and you destabilized them a little bit, but you slipped and fell into a hole. Oops. Okay. So, an insight from Mikyo is the idea of embracing discomfort for mastery. Okay. Embracing discomfort for mastery. Wait. I thought the whole point of Mikyo and Buddhism and all that was to destroy ignorance and to overcome dukkha, dissatisfaction. Yeah, but it's not an easy task because we got to undo all the knots in the ball that we produced and go through all the layers of the onion, all that kind of stuff, right? It's like nintai, right? Nintai. It's not just endurance or persevering, right? The Japanese, they don't typically see the nin kanji alone, right? They usually see it with another kanji that means tai, right? So that to them means perseverance. Conventionally, it means perseverance, endurance. That what it means to us, what that simple symbol means to us. Nintai itself is persevere. This is not tai like body. This is not that same kanji. That's why it's important to understand the differences. Okay. Nintai is persevering or enduring perseverance. It's enduring the challenges that are inherent in being able to persevere and endure through challenging times, right? Perseverance sounds all great until you actually have to do it. Because after a little while, ego doesn't want to do it anymore. Just like, doing the same technique too many times, ego thinks it has it, and then it gets bored, and then it wants to quit. And then it makes up lying stories to the instructor, like, well, I got too much stuff to do. Life's in the way. I mean, if some of us really thought back to what we told our instructor when we stopped training and what we were actually doing in life, because there's a huge difference between my schedule. My life has shifted my schedule in a way that it doesn't match the training schedule of the dojo or of the teachers. But I can still find time to train. I can still find time to practice. It just doesn't match the dojo time. It's what our long distance program kind of seeks to solve. It's a huge difference between that and I don't have the time or overwhelmed my schedule or whatever, and I can't make it to the dojo, so I don't just practice. I just don't practice at all. That, my friends, is called quitting. Whether somebody wants to use the word or not, if they stop going to the dojo, but they still practice and train, not every once in a while, consistently, right? They didn't quit. Schedules didn't jive. So that's a persevering this until I can apply for that position, that time slot, change jobs, whatever, and get back to training. Or keep checking with the dojo, any chance that any other classes, can I do private ones, whatever. Okay. Contacting fellow students. Hey, can we get together and train, dude? I can't make it to the dojo, but whatever. Okay. Huge difference between that and I made up a bullshit story because I got bored or things weren't going my way. I didn't get promoted when I thought I should have, or whatever, right? Things shifted. And not only did I not go to the dojo or the training group, but I didn't fucking practice either. That is quitting. All right? Whether that feels good or not, I don't give a shit. Truth is truth. Right? So this is a really good place to go back to the wood snake or the snake metaphor, right? And this whole idea of molting, right? Shedding, right? Where this is a metaphor. This is a symbol, right? Of the act of letting go of outdated habits, of limiting beliefs, of comfort zones, right? This kind of thing mirrors the snake shedding its skin to grow, right? We let go of things that are actually preventing us from going on. Some people, I mentioned about quitting, the opposite is true. Some students practice their ass off, right? They're really serious about doing things, right? And so they're doing it, but like they keep doing the same kata the same way because that's the official way. No, that's the initiation version. That's the way you're initiated. That's the place to begin. Right? If somebody in my school is a Nidan and they're still doing module 1, that's white to yellow belt stuff, the same way white to yellow belts do it, and they're not a teacher teaching white to yellow belts, somebody has not grown, because there were lots of principles and concepts and tactics and strategies that they learned in mod 2, 3, 4 from Shodan to Nidan that should have made the Nidan manifestation of that technique look very different. Not necessarily entirely different, but speed, power, adaptability, smoothness, but it's not going to look step by step the same, and it shouldn't, because that's not the way it works. Anyway, right? So we got to let those things go, and that's a big thing for anything in our life. If we're trying and we're trying and we're trying and we're trying, and it's not working, okay, then there's something wrong with the process, or there's something wrong with the way we interpret it, or we are executing on it, and so something needs to change. Right? So we need to look at the process, or we need to look at either that thing, right? We're missing something, or I believe it to be something that it's not. So I need to start by questioning myself and my interpretation. I need to figure out what I'm missing. And if it's not that, check with the teacher. No, that's right. No, that's right. No, then there's something else going on in my way of approaching it, or how I think. Like, right, if I treat kamae like their stances, like their dachi, these are not just different words. These are completely different animals. Okay? From the part of the body, or the aspect that gives a dachi its name, or gives a kamae its name, to what we're referencing, to its primary purpose. It's very different. If we treat or think of kamae in the same way that we thought of stances in a different martial art, then our kamae will always be crippled. We will never be able to unleash the full power in the kamae that they inherently have, and therefore any technique that kamae shows up in is fucked. It'll never get past a foundational stage, because the kamae is right? And then there's kihon no kihon within those things. All right? So I don't care how good we look. Right? Progress isn't happening because there's something inhibiting or limiting progress. Right? We got to drop those, or nothing will change. Right? Just like the snake won't grow, we won't grow either. Okay? So if we tie in the traits, or adjust this based on this coming year's conditioning element, wood, right? Then what we're looking at is resourcefulness, adaptability, decisiveness, right? Into the concept of karma, right? As the result of deliberate and mindful action, right? These traits are crucial for navigating challenges and creating a better future, not just for our training, not just for belt levels or whatever, but for every aspect of our lives. Right? The symbolism of the snake shedding its skin, right, to grow, right? You must leave behind even parts of yourself. Right? This can't be done without stepping out of our comfort zone. Right? The snake gets used to its skin. We know when we get used to something, we don't notice it anymore. We barely think of it. So it's the things that we're not thinking of unless somebody points to it, right? Like if I point to the parts between your legs, see, now you're thinking about them, and you might even have a sensation in your pants that it's there. But for a long time, while you're in your head and you were in the intellectual lesson, you couldn't feel them, which is really funny when somebody tells me, sometimes I really think that I have one there. And really interesting, because 98% of my day, I don't notice. That's interesting. Okay. So much for creative visualization. All right. So, again, if you could come up with a strategy, right, for turning an obstacle into a training opportunity, okay, there were lots of times in my career. I was in the military. I was a military cop. We were in engagements around the world. I was stationed at what's now called Fort Liberty. It was Fort Bragg back then, when we were kowtowing to everybody. So what that meant was, instead of working 3 days, 3 evenings, 3 nights, 3 days off, and then there'd be a rotation, and then every 5 or 6 weeks, we'd have a week or two for soldier stuff, right? Go to the field, do that kind of stuff, and then get back on. It was not unheard of during times when units were deployed and whatnot within our brigade, that our company or my platoon or whatever, we were on the road for the same shift for 20, 30, 45 days straight, no days off. Okay. Or whether it was days, evenings, that were just stuck on a shift. There were times when carving out 20, 30 minutes to practice was a bitch, because I was up early, had to do things, and for a military policeman, whether I worked 8 hours or not, 8 hours usually turned into like at least 12, because of drawing your vehicle, inspection, having a uniform inspected, all that kind of stuff. Then you go to the military police station and you have a briefing for the ongoing shift, same thing on the other end of it, returning the vehicle to the motor pool before you even get home, and get some sleep to get up and do it all over again. Not easy, right? So lots of times, limited time for physical practice, right? So I relied heavily, right, during break times or down times or whatever. Sometimes I had 30 seconds, sometimes I had several minutes, whatever, where I could visualize, right? I could use visualization techniques. I would practice using my feet and legs to open and close the refrigerator door or the vehicle door. Of course, I had to like hit the little button to get the door open, but to open and close that way, to use my shoulders and whatnot to engage for taijutsu, to get more fluid body movement. I would use my body and coordination to step out to take a hold of the door at the, let's say it was the mall or a store. Crimes happen all over the place, right? And then using my body movement and my sanshin footwork to open the door and slip through, rather than doing it the way everybody else does. Okay. Had plenty of financial constraints, right? And so couldn't do certain things or couldn't buy certain types of gear, right? I began, free practice using everyday objects, right? Hang a rope from a tree limb with like maybe a weighted ball or something like that on it, and tap the ball, and it would swing on this rope. And if I hit it at an angle, it would kind of move in a weird pattern, and I would just practice evading and avoiding it. If I didn't have a training partner, I mean, I had to get creative, right? So anyway, there's in the student workbooks, we have some drills and whatnot that are hinted at. Often we do them in the dojo, but a lot of them you don't need a training partner. In the Ninpo Masterclass program, that happens twice a week. Anybody that's ever done the Friday virtual training, we actually have 2 of those a week for the Shinobi Kai black belt students. And there's drills that are either suggested or we do some things like that in there. And that would increase things as well. But you've got YouTube. So instead of looking for more techniques, or instead of looking for the next move that Sensei's entertaining everybody with, stop and listen, divorce yourself of technique and listen for training ideas, drills, or practice methods or whatever, or just do a search for that stuff in general. Right. Okay. Anyway, James, if you want to toss the one in for Nimpo Masterclass, just in case anybody wants to jump in on that, that's fine too. And if not, no harm, no foul. Okay. Any questions or comments about anything I just covered there? Moving right along, footloose and fancy free. Did I lose James? I know he was having internet problems earlier. Oh, there he is.
No, sir, I don't see anything new.
Okay. Thanks. I appreciate it. My lurking ninja in the background. All right. Let's see. All right. Next session. Overcoming the excuse mentality. Oh, the one everybody's been waiting for. Okay. So James and I talk about this on a regular basis, right? The emails, the discussions, whatever, right? That one way or another point to people's tendency to want to play the escapism card, making or expecting others to handle the hard stuff, to wait for the unfair system to change, right? Or to even use drugs or other sense addictions, right? I mentioned Netflix binging, could be hours of scrolling, video game playing, whatever, to avoid directly confronting the reality and the problems it produces and makes worse, right? By avoiding, by expecting justice from outside sources, waiting to be saved by having somebody else do the hard work or the work in general, right? And the reality in martial arts training is nobody can do this for you. Or just trying to sidestep the discomfort, right? It's new. It doesn't feel like me. Yeah, I know. You know when it'll feel like you? When it becomes your new habit, right? By doing all those things, we end up robbing ourselves of the opportunity to develop very powerful skill sets that we don't currently possess, right? But that wouldn't be possible without those same problems, right? Learning how to postpone gratification. It's a huge skill set of all successful people. I don't care if we're talking about professional sports athletes, wealthy business people. Hatsumi Sensei has talked about these things over and over and over again. Right. One of the first times I heard him talk about this, and has since increased the number, is that all successful people have invested at least 3 times more in the way of time, effort, commitment, resources, even money, all that, in getting to where they are than the average person. Right? Some people aren't even willing to do the minimum because, well, I don't know. What is it? I mentioned a bunch of these things earlier: stubbornness, laziness, whatever. To me, and I'm guilty of many of these things in my past as well. Okay? It's almost like choosing to remain in childhood rather than growing into a place of life mastery. We know what childhood's like, right? Kid has problems, kid has a boo-boo, whatever, parents come rushing in, right? It's the parents' job to do all the hard work, to supply all the basic day-to-day necessities, all that kind of stuff, right? To provide the child with what they need. If the child throws a tantrum, then everybody's supposed to fold. And if they don't, well, what happens if they don't? Well, then the child has to figure it out for themselves, right? Johnny wants to hit me. Well, don't let him hit you. Well, how do I know? How do we do that? Well, get out of the way. Don't be near him when he wants to punch. Or if he punches you and it lands, hit him back. Yeah. That's not the way they do it these days. Well, that's why we have so many fucking problems. Okay. Bring back the warrior society, I say. Okay? I'm a big fan of bringing back Krampus. Okay. All we did when we switched from Krampus to Santa was make the punishment nice. We went from Krampus is coming to take a switch to your ass. You're not getting presents. You're getting this. And then Santa loves all the boys and girls. But if you're bad, he has a naughty list and he won't bring you any presents, or he will put switches and coal, Krampus, in your stocking instead. Well, shit, that doesn't hurt. What if I don't care about not getting presents? What's the answer to that? A timeout chair? Timeout chair to that kind of personality is great. I'm going to sit over here and you're going to leave me the fuck alone. I had a couple of kids, stepkids, that when they got punished and made to sit down, they would try to sleep through the punishment time. They'd just take a nap. So when they woke up, they didn't feel it. It was no big deal. Okay. It worked for most people. With me, I just keep waking them up because interrupted naps become painful. I know. I'm an asshole. No, I'm a parent. My job is very specific. It's to teach lessons and provide them with the things they need when they leave the house to move out into the world, because the world doesn't give a shit. So, anyway, there's that. Okay. And you can do whatever you want. Okay? Everybody can do whatever they want. I'm just conveying this is a personal thing. Okay. So, what else do I have here? The tendency to avoid discomfort, to seek external salvation, or hope for fairness from an inherently chaotic system is not just a symptom of societal conditioning. It's a relinquishment of personal power and responsibility. Right? So let's take a look at a breakdown of how this ties into some of these key principles we've been talking about. Okay. So let's start with avoidance versus growth. Okay. So obstacles are actually catalysts for skill development. Okay. Challenges are the forge, right? I know I'm being very poetic here, but they're really the forge, right? Where mastery is born. Okay. When one chooses avoidance, whether through escapism, addiction, passivity, whatever, they are actually forfeiting the chance to grow stronger, smarter, and more adaptable. No challenges, no monkey in the wrench being tossed in the middle of getting something done. No need to learn how to adapt. Somebody rushing in and solving the problem for you. No need to even be able to, or to need to finish a project, let alone think critically. Right? I know somebody that, like, you tell them to go do something, and as soon as it doesn't match perfectly, right? Like go to the store and grab I don't know, some white American cheese slices. Get a 12-pack. Okay? Get a phone call. They don't have 12 packs. They have 6-packs. Get 2 of those. They have 16 packs. Get 1 of those. Okay. This is not difficult. This is not rocket science, but apparently it is. Okay? In their attempt to get fixed on this one right thing, they completely stifle their ability to produce results because they can't adapt. And then life feels too hard. And then, I don't know, whatever the current escapism thing is, crack a beer, whatever, right? So in ninjutsu, the principle of seishin teki kyoyo, right? Spiritual refinement, we understand this stuff, right? Emphasizes this, right? Life's hardships are the dojo where inner strength, clarity, and resilience are trained. In fact, the definition based on the kanji of the word dojo, I get it. It's a training hall. It's where we train. Dojo. Do, way, jo, place. It's a place to practice or study the way. The original definition of dojo is a place where enlightenment takes place. Any place where we have the opportunity to overcome, to study, to work on, to develop, to grow beyond, or to develop the ability to handle hardship, to develop inner strength, clarity, resilience, whatever. Life, the world out there, is the dojo. So what's the dojo that we go to? It's more akin to a classroom. The teacher demonstrates options and passes on lessons, but we put those to the test out there. I'm not suggesting you go out and test your physical techniques and whatnot, but shit. I had a car slide off a freaking cliff. I didn't have a choice. Well, I did. We all have choices. Okay? But it's perfect time to practice ukemi. Right? And escape plans that I had pre-made for decades. Could I have died? Yep. But I didn't. And a big part of why I didn't was I wasn't an accomplice to my own ass kicking. I didn't stiffen up. I didn't hold my breath. I didn't, panic and do something stupid. And I had a plan to get out of there as quickly as possible. This went all the way back to choosing the car that I was in. It wasn't a rental. I bought that car, and all cars except for one, it was a hybrid. All cars have had the ability to drop the back seat and escape through the trunk, should all other exits from the vehicle be blocked. And that's the one that got me out. And as soon as I stepped out of the car on a cliff, right, as soon as I stepped out of the car with my second foot, the car broke free from the thing that temporarily stopped it from rolling and continued on down to the point where when people saw it afterwards, they were like, how did you survive that? I said I wasn't in it when I looked like that. Luckily, it stopped just long enough. Had that little lucky moment. Hatsumi-Sensei talks about being okay with luck as well. We don't aim for it, but we'll accept it. Right? You'd be listening to somebody else during a podcast. Okay? So even the way we think about things, right? If we think about a dojo, I can't get to the dojo. Really? You can't go outside? You can't go to work? You can't go to the store? Right? You can't work on solving your problems? Right? Or overcoming an issue or figuring out how to move now because your leg is injured or we got these little things that you didn't have 10 years ago or whatever. Really? Life is the dojo. You can't not go to the dojo. What you can do is be in the dojo and not be freaking paying attention. The only difference is in the dojo, the teacher may or may not slap your ass awake. In life, the problems just get worse. Okay? Again, fortune favors the bold. Right? We expand on this just a little bit. Right? This focus, this belief system, this just focusing on this quote, right? It challenges us to step out of self-limiting beliefs and to take risks. Right? I can't emphasize enough how courage to act despite uncertainty. If you were in for the whole lesson or the whole thing so far, I mentioned this back with one of Hatsumi-Sensei's quotes, right? The courage to act despite uncertainty leads to growth and better outcomes. Are you going to be perfect at it the first time? No. But part of this process is, part of this boldness is embracing the suck, recognizing that you're not going to be perfect at it, just like you weren't perfect at all the techniques when you first learned them, right? But we keep doing them, we keep practicing, we keep using the skills, and we will suck less and less and less until we can do it like it's no big deal. Okay? So again, this reflects back on the snake's adaptability. Okay? The snake's ability to blend into its environment, yet strike decisively. Right? This This goes hand in hand with overcoming mental and emotional barriers that hold a lot of students back. Probably not you, but holds a lot of students back. This whole idea of remaining in childhood, right? And I know I probably stung some people, right? Dare you call me childish? Keep speaking like that. Thank you for proving my point. Not you, the unenlightened ones. Okay. So, but what I'm talking about is avoiding problems and expecting external resolution, right? Expecting other ones to come in, somebody else to come in, kiss the boo-boo, make the problem go away, bully the bully, whatever, right? This mirrors the dependent mindset of children. Growth requires embracing the discomfort of self-reliance and transformation. Right? The ninja's nintai, right? Perseverance and endurance, embodies this willingness to shoulder the burden, to stand amidst the chaos, to thrive despite it. We all, I think all potential students that come to me have this hero or warrior complex. They want to be the savior. They want to be the person that when bad shit's happening, they can save everybody. But that requires certain personality traits that's going to take some serious soul searching to make sure we have it. Because if people aren't willing to shoulder their own burdens and to dive in for personal things, holy shit, seriously? We're going to face the evil demons and the guys with the Uzis and the... Okay. Ninja do not avoid... You imagine, right? There's only one, maybe a small team, right? All the stuff I've seen through Togakure stuff and whatnot, we're looking at teams of 3 to 5, maybe, right? And they're all spread out. So even though they go in as a team, there's names for these. You can look them up in the Banzen Shukai and the Shuninki and stuff like that. They go in, and so they're in to recruit locals and whatnot. And I'll talk about one of those types of agents here shortly. But they move in, but they spread out. So they have very little contact with each other and very little contact with the people that they are recruiting or cultivating and whatnot, right? So, but essentially, they're all working alone in enemy territory. You get caught, well, good luck, right? So this is what we're aspiring to be. And even though we're aspiring to be just, well, maybe I don't want to take it that far. Maybe I just want to be the warrior, right? I mean, I'm okay, mano a mano and that kind of stuff. Okay, yeah. So you're okay if he pulls a blade on you. You're okay if he pulls a gun on you. You're okay if he sneaks into your house to kill you in your sleep because you defended yourself against him 3 days ago and you beat his ass and now you're gloating about it, but he's been at home festering this wound and figuring out where you live and or going after your family or I know it sounds pretty freaking brutal, but right. And I think about all the people that, if you think that the invisible powers that be are corrupt and whatnot, I mean, come on, people, we've been convinced, and there's at least one political party in my country. It's really funny. It's rich people. Their whole story is not that both don't do it, right? But here's the story. Ignore that I'm rich, but I'm going to convince poor people to hate the rich people and vote for me to get into office so I can protect them from the rich people. But I'm a rich person myself. This fucking manipulation, right? So, it's the rich guy that's corrupt. It's the rich guy that cheats. It's the rich guy. Early on, I don't know if you signed on late or not, but one of the first statistics I threw out was that 20% of any company's workforce, any organization, any dojo, anything, 20% produces 50% of the results. That means that the 80%, the second 50% is spread out across that 80%, which means that 80% are taking up space but getting paid the same. Who's cheating again? who's somehow convinced themselves that the rich guy can afford it, the other people can do the hard work, and the only thing that's different is what? Not getting a welfare paycheck? I don't know. Okay. Before we start throwing stones, better make sure we haven't built ourselves a glass house that we're trying to live in. All right. So there's another side to this, right? There's this whole choosing comfort over mastery, right? This whole illusion of fairness and justice, right? I've been alluding to this. Expecting fairness from a world is a dangerous illusion. Human beings run the world at all levels. You don't have to be in charge, right? But as long as we're dealing with humans, okay, if that weren't true, then we wouldn't have things like Buddhism, Christianity, Islam. We wouldn't have spiritual and philosophical traditions and whatnot to help people to be more moral and ethical. We're not, sorry, me too. We're not better just because, right? Well, those people, okay. Just because they are doesn't mean that we're not. That's why Seishin Teki Kyoyo comes first. The ninja understood that justice is rarely handed down. It must be created or transcended. By seeking equal fairness, one remains reactive, powerless, and subject to the whims of others. We're playing the waiting game. And escapism is a thief of growth. Whether through substance abuse, entertainment, or other forms of distraction, escapism denies ourselves the opportunity to develop critical life mastery skills. Okay? What kind of skills? Well, let's see. Critical thinking and problem solving. Right? Learning to navigate complexities with creativity and ingenuity. Rob ourselves of emotional resilience. Right? Anybody hear common themes that I've covered in KUDEN along the way? Right? Emotional resilience. That's cultivating the ability to endure and transform emotional pain into wisdom so that we can operate regardless. Okay? It's not about being cold. It's about being in control of ourselves. It robs us of being highly adaptable, right? Having the skill set of adaptability, right? That's becoming agile in the face of life's unpredictability, right? You know, many others have developed age-related limitations. We've been injured in accidents and actual warfare. Right? I've trained with others who, like one who was shot trying to protect his wife and child, unsuccessfully, unfortunately. During an attack, he was shot and ended up blind for the rest of his life. Okay? Another Bujinkan Daishihan from another country lost his legs in combat and had to master prosthetic legs to get to the level of his proficiency. And he's really fucking good. Okay. All on fake legs. Okay. And others who didn't even start training until they were in their 70s. I got one of them in my dojo now. Okay? I've had several across the years. Okay. The trick, just like with normal people, average people, right? Outside of training, who lose their legs or were born without legs or whatever and learn to master the wheelchair that they're now bound to for the rest of their life, or who start and grow $1 million business from poverty, right? The trick is to figure out how to adapt to and excel at the new position or in the new or current state. Not bitch and complain, not you hold that out as the reason why or whatever. I mean, that's no different than, you know, we might not be holding out a tin cup for spare change, but if we're holding out the story for the sympathy or for the understanding or for whatever, that crutch, if used past the point of gaining stability, if it's still being used, then it has become a dependency and not an aid. To do otherwise is to admit that a crippled or otherwise handicapped individual, somebody who doesn't even possess the same body parts, the same faculties, the same level of ability, youth, whatever, has something that we don't. I had a student once, his name was Paul, as Jersey as it gets. And I mean, like on the accent, you know what I'm saying? Right. He had his 2 daughters in my program, and with this older guy, just one of my best friends in the entire world. Somehow we ended up seeing each other as mentors. He was a retired Army Sergeant Major. And when I met him, when he enrolled his 2 grandsons into my program, this is not Paul now, this is a guy named Bud McHale, who, I'm just sorry to say, he passed years ago. But he's one of these people that I heard the day of and canceled classes, threw on some business attire, got to the church too late for the service, or near, like at the end of the service, so I could pay my respects and say goodbye. Anyway, he had multiple bypass surgery. He had multiple bypass surgeries. Had a nitroglycerin patch on each arm and an emergency vial around his neck. And eventually he and his daughter, the mom of the 2 boys, decided they were jumping into training. Got all the way to a 2nd degree black belt. Anyway, in the interim, so Bud had flat feet, he was overweight, he had a heart problem, all this kind of stuff. Now, within 6 months of training, he was no longer wearing the emergency vial of nitroglycerin, and he was down to 1 nitro patch that he alternated every other day. And I think eventually that went away. But he had the nitro vial close by. It just wasn't like right here. So we had been invited to the local federal penitentiary. They had an open house for family members of their COs, of their staff and correctional officers. And we were asked to do a demonstration. And so very often in class, Bud was like physically incapable of doing certain skills. Okay. So he would call out somebody who could do it, and he would give the lessons and give the teaching and all that. They would demonstrate the tight end. They would demonstrate the physical thing. Right. And people learned it very easily. But there were some things, like I was not going to ask him to do a dive roll or anything like that could create a cardiopulmonary problem or anything like that. But as a part of this demonstration, we led in with some rolling and cartwheels and stuff like that. We got to a point where we had this big barrel and we did dive rolls, and Bud starts coming up for it. I was like, and he did it anyway. He didn't crash and burn. He just had to modify it. So he came down and came out in a side roll, picked himself up and went along. And, Paul was there with his daughters. They were helping with the demonstration and whatnot. And like a day or 2 later after the demonstration, Paul comes into the dojo and he goes, "Hey, sign me up." Like, where the hell did that come from? He was there watching Bud. And he said on his way home, he looked at his wife, Valerie, and said, I got nothing. He's way older than me. He has all those medical conditions. He has flat feet. Whatever. If he can do it, if he can jump in, and I got nothing. What excuse could I pull out that could even compare? I don't know. Okay. So here's how the ninja historically would view beliefs like this, right? Let's start with the system mentality, right? Like the system's out to get me, right? So the belief that external systems or powers prevent success, no. Are they problematic? Of course. But no matter how much pressure or anything somebody's putting on us, ultimately, we decide whether or not to comply. Yeah, but if you don't, you get it. Well, then apply some stealth. Figure out how to get it done. Takamatsu-Sensei, at the end of World War II, when military law was imposed by MacArthur and nobody was allowed to practice combat-oriented martial arts, he dressed himself and Hatsumi Sensei and all their students in judo gi and trained right out in the fucking open. Because, you know, if it looks like a duck, and they were left alone. Gave an opportunity. Most of the time, like if somebody was coming, they just switched the throws. If a car was coming down the road, if they saw somebody that looked like they were military, if they saw a plane fly, instantly, we're going to switch over to throws. Okay? You figure out a way. If you really want to do something, you figure out a way. All right? So the whole point here is adaptation over blame. The ninja understood that the world was often chaotic and unjust. So rather than lamenting or fighting systems head on, I'm going to fight the man. Really? You got an army? All right? They focused on adapting, evading, and subverting them to achieve their goals. You don't have to subvert it to like undermine them so that, you know, there's a possibility of direct clashing or whatever. The question isn't whether or not you can do something, is what can you do? I'm not going to say, well, yeah, I will, because I don't care at this point. Right? During the COVID thing, when they had a secondary shutdown, I don't care what anybody thinks. There were certain students that were willing to train and wanted to, but there was, and I didn't find out until later that our local authorities were not going to be enforcing some of this stuff because it had already run its course. Right? This was after it was supposed to be over, and then all of a sudden there was a little hiccup in there, right? But I wasn't sure. So the Shinobi Kai group, those who wanted to train, we were at the dojo, training with the lights off. What an opportunity to practice our stuff in low light conditions. Sensei, I'm telling. Tell away. Okay. So again, I'm making a strategic tactical decision to tell people about that, knowing that some people aren't going to like it because they have beliefs about certain things, may want to report something to, I don't know who the hell they're going to report it to, or just think badly about me. Okay. But it was a strategic and tactical decision. Could we have gotten things? Yeah, but the worst was over. It was already stated to be over. So anyway, and then seeing obstacles as tools. The ninjas saw obstacles as tools. The weapons, right? When I first got involved in this martial art, none of the weapons were called weapons. We were taught to look at them like tools. A weapon is thought of in one very specific way, to cause damage to another person's body. What's a tool? Well, tool is something that allows us to accomplish a task faster, easier, to amplify force and power and whatnot with the least amount of wear and tear on ourselves in the process. Fantastic. We didn't call fundo, sword, whatever. We didn't call them. Nobody said bring your weapons to class. Bring your training tools to class. All right? So everything's a tool. Obstacles is a tool to refine their skills. Corrupt systems or forces beyond control are opportunities to practice patience. They're opportunities to practice strategy. They're opportunities to practice stealth. Right? They believed in bending circumstances to their advantage rather than being crushed by them. Right? That includes overbearing family members. That includes they're not obstacles unless we let them be. Right? They're temporary problems that require strategic thinking and tactical application of the same principles and concepts that we say we want to master. Okay? We can use Kyojutsu Tenkan, right? Truth and falsehood. Okay? So they mastered deception and manipulation to operate within or around corrupt systems. We know that, right? If a system presents limitations, right, they would exploit its blind spots, they would create openings, or they would bypass it entirely. But you know what? The Kyojutsu Tenkan, we can use that on ourselves. Right? because the thing that's stopping us is we believe something to be an absolute truth. But what if it wasn't? Or things that we think are bullshit, what if they're not? Things that we think we can't do, what if we can? We can flip these things and look at it from the opposite perspective. Sensei's been teaching on this stuff for decades. Okay. And there's personal responsibility. Okay. A ninja acts within the reality of the moment. You can either bow to your situation, or you can say, okay, this is what I have to work with. What can I do with this? At least for the moment, at least until I get a little bit more, and then a little bit more, and then a little bit more. Okay. And responsibility is power. Ancient ninja didn't wait for fairness or justice to make progress. They believed that by taking full responsibility for their actions and outcomes, they could exert control over even the most oppressive situations. And they did. If they didn't, we wouldn't all want to be one. Right? But again, remember, the decision to not act is still a choice. And it's one with consequences. Okay. So what can we do now to make progress as ninja? Right. So we can focus on what we can control rather than what we cannot. We can develop skills to navigate difficult systems rather than resist them directly. Remember indirect engagement. It's the ninja's way. All right. We can see limitations as training grounds for creativity and resilience. We can remember that our power lies not in changing the external world, but in mastering our response to it. It's an old saying that I love, and I've committed to memory. It's not that bad things happen. It's what you do when bad things happen that makes the difference. By embodying these lessons, we can embrace the true spirit of the ninja, one of perseverance, creativity, and self-mastery. Right? So here's a quick practical application, or quick practical kind of thing, right? So you can do a quick self-assessment, okay? 3 quick questions, right? 1, what have you been putting off that you know you should be doing? Right? 2, what excuses are you making that allow you to feel okay or no pressure when you put it off? And 3, what's one small action that you can take today, and if it's late like it is for me, first thing tomorrow morning, to start moving forward? Okay. Had a little anecdote here. I'm going to swap that one out. And then let's see. I think, no, this is short enough. I should be able to do this before we round things out. Okay. So the ninja as a master of time, right? Time is a resource. Okay. Remember what I said about Hatsumi Sensei's quote about all successful people have invested at least 3 times in the way of time, effort, resources, whatever, to become, right? Okay. So time's a resource. Okay. Right? The ninja viewed time not as a constraint, but as an opportunity. Okay? There's this concept, Sokshi, Sokushi, not Sukoshi. That's Skoshi. Skoshi means small, a little, right? Sokshi, Sokushi, means immediacy. Okay? We act as though every moment counts. Right? So here's an example. There's a person in the world right now, alive and breathing and hugging his wife and children, and probably grandchildren at this point, because of a decision that was made many, many years ago. My wife and I, my kids were still young. They were living with their mom. I had visitation. So weekend, I was on my way, an hour drive from our home to the Harrisburg area, again, south from where we are. We're on this road. It's now been widened and all that kind of stuff. It was pretty rough back then. But we're driving, and all of a sudden, the car in front of us does this weird maneuver, and my brain went from what the fuck is this guy doing to holy shit, because he shot across multiple lanes of traffic and like was driving along the berm and like the shoulder on the opposite side. Luckily there was no barrier, and all of a sudden lots of smoke and all that, dirt being kicked up as the car came to a stop. And my wife at the time, she was an emergency nurse, and we both at the same time went shit. And I whipped the car over, pulled it in. We both went into action. I immediately started like controlling traffic and whatnot. We both assessed the situation, and the long and short of it is, there was a tractor trailer in front of him. That, it was there. I mean, I saw it, but I didn't see the activity happen that triggered everything. What happened was the trailer veered just a little bit, and one of the tires on the trailer clipped the side of the road. So again, remember I said it was really, really rough, right? And so when he clipped that little piece, right, because there was a little drop off before the shoulder, he snagged a piece of concrete that was about 7 to 9 inches across and formed a triangle, and it was about 4 or 5 inches thick, and shot it through the windshield into the driver's throat. Okay. So his initial, obviously, response, he had control of the steering wheel. He tensed up, caused an acceleration, shot this thing across the road. And as the car stayed on the shoulder and then all of a sudden came to a stop, was because his friend reached over and grabbed a hold of the steering wheel and then slid over enough that he could actually stomp on the brake and then get the thing into park. Two teenage boys in the back. Here was best friends or brothers or something, going to a football game. This was a major route to, if you're from Pennsylvania, they were going to a Penn State game in State College. And so, but here's this hunk of freaking concrete, right, laying on his lap or the console. And, my ex-wife was like, what happened or whatever. And this guy, his friend, holding everything in, holds this thing up and goes, "This came in the window." And, I had already called 911. State police come rolling in and stuff. And as he's getting out of the car, I'm walking back to him, identified myself, former military police. I don't even know why I said it. I know why I said it. I said it to gain credibility, right? And I said, you need to find where this came from. It came from that direction on that side of the road. Sure enough, I went back to directing traffic. She's handling EMTs that are showing up, way undertrained, all that kind of stuff. Anyway, long story short, we get emergency evac helicopter, all that kind of stuff. And next day, 2 days later, something like that, she gets a phone call from this guy from his hospital bed, thanking us for saving his life. And we got a call from him and a Christmas card every year for many years, thanking us for allowing him to enjoy another one. That's the power of acting now. Not, somebody will call. What the hell's up with him? Whatever. Okay. That immediate action made all the difference. Not in our life. Okay? Because afterwards, I called my ex and said, "Hey, this happened and whatnot." And she said, "If you can't be on time to pick up your kids, you don't get to see them." So, I'm not saying it didn't come with hardship. Just ignited another fire. However, there's somebody still alive and there's other people whose lives are affected because this guy's still breathing. So, I'm going to ask you again. What are you putting off right now that would make a huge difference if you started today? I don't care what it is. I don't care what part of your life it's in. I don't care if it's training, whatever, right? To a ninja, it's all the same. All right? It's all the same. Okay. James, one more. If you haven't done the Life Purpose Discovery Program, this is what this is all about, right? Who's the person making the decisions? What do you hold important, right? if somebody asks you why you make the decisions you make, what would you tell them? It's a simple little program. It'll take a while to get done, but there's only 5 exercises in it. Right? 2 are about identifying the core elements that would be in your perfect life. If you could wave a magic wand or a magic ninja sword or whatever and create your perfect life, certain things would not be a part of it. Certain things would absolutely be a part of it. Non-negotiable. And then the things that are not, right, wouldn't be, not those. The things that absolutely would be, if they're not, then there's an exercise for prioritizing those and using something I said earlier, right? What's preventing those from happening? Because everybody spins their wheels trying to make the things happen. The more money, the more time, the whatever. Instead of thinking strategically and tactically like a damn ninja and asking, what is preventing those things from happening? And then systematically eliminating those things. Well, I don't make enough money. Okay, well, why are we still working a job that cannot support the lifestyle you want? Right? Well, I'm not qualified. How do you go about getting the qualification? Or what other jobs that don't require much more than this are going to actually have you working less? I mean, there's guys out there that are guys and girls standing. I know. Who wants to stand on your feet for 8 hours? I don't know. You want the $25 or $30 an hour that comes with the friggin' job of turning a sign from stop to slow? Right? Right? Who wants to do these things? The person who wants the better life more than they want the bullshit or looking into the eyes of their loved ones and having to say, we can't. But James, if you could pop that up, I'd appreciate it. Again, see the sales part. If you want it, great. If not, okay, this is about you. All right. All right. So, quick closing challenge here. Just quick summary. All right. The key lessons that I just covered. Right. Action defines who you are. All right. Remember, I've covered this in the past. Show me your 5 closest friends. All right. You look at their actions because that's what I'm looking at. You're the average of those. Otherwise, they wouldn't be your friends as far as close friends. You'll act the same way, go to the same things, go like to whatever. I'm not saying it's good or bad. Okay. But also, look at those 5 closest friends. What do their lives look like? If left unchanged, remember, you're the average of that. Left unchanged, that's your future. Okay? One of the best things that I ever did was travel for training and get into the dojo, right? Again, when I first started training, there were 3 formal dojos in the United States. One was in New Jersey, one was in California, and one was in Germantown, Ohio, just outside of Dayton. Oh, I was stationed with the United States Army Military Police in what was then West Germany. Not easy to get there. But I became a part of a dojo family, a group of people who many, lifestyle-wise, profession-wise, skill-wise, and all, way above me. Friendships developed and all that. That was a huge, huge reason that my life in many areas changed, because the group I was in were not mirrors of the me that wanted the change. They were mirrors of the me that would be the new version, which required dropping certain communication styles, the way I carried myself, the way I thought of myself, the way I prioritized, what I was willing to tolerate in my life, what I was not. Very different. We talked about obstacles being opportunities. Right? They allow you to develop the skill sets that make future similar obstacles easier, make them easier to handle, and to make them easier to handle more quickly. Okay? You're always making choices, whether you realize it or not. Okay? Choosing to not choose is an illusion. You can't choose to not choose without making a freaking choice. It's not possible. Right? I mean, you can delude yourself into believing that you're choosing to not choose. I'm not choosing. Well, okay, you made a choice. Congratulations. All right, but you keep thinking, not you. Right? And then becoming a person of action. Okay. So borrowing a little bit more of that wood snake wisdom, right? So take a little bit more of the, or refocus on these traits of the wood snake, right? This, because it's coming up in 2025, right? A couple of weeks, right? Focus on its patience and strategic mindset as a model for taking action that is deliberate and impactful. We don't act just for the sake of acting, right? It's like a hamster on a wheel, right? So remember that molting metaphor, right? In practice, right? So what you could think about this thing, right? Identify areas in your life where you need to shed your old skin to embrace growth and opportunity. What has to go? So I told you this wasn't about doing, this was about dropping. What has to go? All right. And what I'd like you to reflect on is the actions you take today create the ninja that you will become tomorrow. Now, that's not the closing. This is the closing. Don't forget, though, that there were ninja, okay? For those of that you are on podcast, Apple Podcast, whatever, okay, Spotify. I'm making air quotes again, right? There were ninja who didn't even know that they were considered to be ninja, right? They were part of the ninja family, that part of the clan, right? They were being used by and for the success of the actual ninja operatives, of the clan, right? They were ninja, but not by design, but through cultivation because of their self-limiting and defeatist beliefs. In the ancient ninja strategies, right? These were pulled out of Sun Tzu's Art of War, outlined in the Mansan Shukai, Shoninki, those kind of places, right? There was the concept of what the Japanese called the kyokan. Kyokan, K-Y long O or K-Y-O-U, whatever works for you, K-A-N, right? That means local agent. Someone inside the enemy's territory who could be manipulated without even realizing it. The ninja would find those dissatisfied with their ruler, those who felt stuck or oppressed by their circumstances, and they would subtly use these people's grievances to achieve their mission. These people often didn't even know that they were being used. Their dissatisfaction and lack of personal clarity made them perfect tools. Right? Often, the real ninja needed to do nothing more than get one of these people drunk or to say something that triggered a rant, right? That mentioning something they liked, disliked, whatever. And that Kyokan couldn't resist or agreeing or disagreeing with, and then expounding on their beliefs, adding in relevant news, happenings, whatever, right? Which would then be used as a part of the information the actual ninja was collecting. Even if it only meant that instead of reporting back to the Chunin and saying, these guys, they're people, the ruler, right? The people are against him, right? Instead of saying that, they knew exactly how these people thought, felt, believed. Okay? This is very powerful information. Okay. And it's usable regardless of whether or not, let's say I'm the Chunin or the Jonin. It's usable whether or not I want to take control, whether or not I want to make you hate or like someone, or whether or not I want to get you to buy something. If this was easy in ancient Japan, imagine how much more so now that people are doing it on fucking Facebook. Shit, I don't even need to go to someone's town to use this technique on them. Right? More often than not, I just throw a comment on something I just put something out. I post, right? Without even targeting them. They put their hands up, right? They end up throwing a freaking comment on something that I posted. Right? Now, usually, if you notice these things, I usually shut them down. Okay. I'll say something that he doesn't like. Right. And then they'll go quiet because I'd rather have them mad at me. I'd rather have a potential student mad at me and give them an opportunity to think about things, reflect on things, or at least stop fucking talking online and giving away your position, right? Than to give someone the info, someone else, not them, right? The information to use against that person. But if I don't answer you, if I don't answer one of these people, feel free to keep talking. Because I do check out profiles to get a sense and additional information about people that make themselves targets. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. All right? But here's the warning, because I care. When we fail to take responsibility for our own lives, when we let external circumstances or systems define us, when we can't help sharing our personal beliefs and ire, our anger, we risk becoming just like the Kyokan, a tool for someone else's goals instead of the master of our own destiny. Right? This only serves to reinforce the very same feelings and reality of victimhood that people like this believe to be true about themselves. But they're blaming it on everybody and everything else. It's not that. Right? So look, right? I'm challenging you to take one specific action within the next 24 hours to change things. Right? And it's probably going to be, it could be to do something, could be to drop something. It's probably going to be both. Right? But that specific action could be to register for a program. It could be to start practicing a neglected skill. It could be to reach out for guidance or mentorship. It could be to make one of those lists that I've already mentioned. Okay. So we'll talk about this more in part 3, but use the wood snake as a symbol, right, for your potential for transformation. Okay. I want you to think of 2025 as your year to shed past limitations, to embody boldness, and to step into a new phase of growth. Okay. All right. So next week's episode, we're going to be talking about setting the stage for 2025 and applying that Kaizen process to master ourselves in the new year. Okay. So much more proactive, but we'll see how those things go. All right. So let's go ahead and wrap this up. James, questions, comments, complaints? Not from you. I mean, if you have any, feel free to speak up.
But Greg said, I think fear is the greatest hindrance we all have inbuilt.
I appreciate that. I used to believe that. Right? When it comes to fear, I believe that there's a step past fear. I believe that people are more afraid of being or feeling fear than the actual state of fear itself. They won't even let themselves get into that state. You could put that into failure and whatever, but yeah, I think it's the biggest fear is the fear of being afraid. What else? But that's mine. That's my humble opinion, as they would say. I'm not spelling that out.
The only other comments from Dave, he said kids and adults alike learn real quick to curb their behavior.
Yeah, of course. Of course. Because culturally, and I can see why it's true, culturally, the behavior is curbed toward compliance and fitting in, because that allows for, less chaos and all that kind of stuff. But it enforces the state of mediocrity, because everybody then is average. The goal is average, not excelling, because excelling requires us very often to see, like people often will say, it's you're lucky, you're in business for yourself or whatever. James gets a chance firsthand, secondhand to see some of this stuff, and right between the lambasting and the whatever, you haven't seen firsthand where somebody's tried to fuck me, right? I don't mean like in a nice way. I mean, tried to undermine things and whatever. Okay. It can be a battlefield. Right? There's constant strategic and tactical thinking and all that kind of stuff. Right. Anyway, it's people who excel sacrifice a lot. I mean, to become a Michael Jordan, to become a Shaquille O'Neal, to become any, right? Even people that were handed things have to hold on to it. I've known people that, parents were freaking rich, doctors, psychiatrists, whatever, right? Got handed money, just pissed it away because they didn't have the skills. They didn't have the same skills that their parents had to get it and maintain it. So to look at somebody and go, well, of course he is because like it was handed to him. He still had to have the skills to fucking keep it and to make more because taxation and all kinds of shit. And people who think, well, he's rich, I'll just sue him, right? Look at all the money he's got. Yeah, he has to keep making more money because one, right? Everybody wants to take it. Right? I'd love to have a conversation about taxation with people someday because rich people don't get rebates. If you look at the rebates and factor them in, that means that 50% of the income tax that's paid. And then they have businesses and they're paying, just look at your pay stub. If you work for a company, look at your pay stub, look at your federal tax and look at your state tax. If you're in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, you can include state, but just for federal, every paycheck, you look at that federal number, okay? Your employer is paying that amount on top of your amount. Same thing with your Social Security tax. And those benefits are not free. And they don't have a printing press in the basement. Right? He's always worried about sales. Well, no shit. Where do you think the money comes from for the paychecks? But without those kind of lessons and that kind of knowledge, then we end up with all kinds of bullshit ideas. Not to mention the risk. His house is probably leveraged to the max. Wife is, or husband or whoever is accustomed to a certain level of living that goes away. The family dissolves and then they're getting half of what? Nothing, whatever, right? Lawsuits all the time, right? Defending oneself even when they're right. Because we all have a slush fund, right? We're here for self-defense. We all have a slush fund so that when we defend ourselves and the victim, or not the victim, the attacker and or his surviving family gets a lawyer to sue us for damages, we can protect ourselves and keep ourselves from bankruptcy or prison or whatever, right? We all have that as part of our self-defense tool set, right? Oh, good. I'm glad. Perfect. Awesome. All right. What else?
The last thing I see is Dave just said a lot of good nuggets tonight.
Thanks. I almost made a statement about nuggets, but I'm glad I'm not. Right? One of my favorite, let's tie these things two together and I'm going to stop talking. Warren Buffett, who everybody loves to hate, was asked about, taxes and that kind of stuff, right? Pays a lot of taxes, right? And he said, I'd rather be the payee than the payor. Because one, a Robin Hood state is taking how much of your shit that you've worked hard to make. And the other one will always vote for the laws that want to take more. But the one who wants to take more is blind because they don't see that they're a ward of the state. To continue getting, they have to continue complying. To be able to see the manipulation and the wizard behind the curtain, right? We have to start by questioning everything. Personal power doesn't start with wanting to be powerful. Personal power begins with becoming the kind of person that can weather the storm that power will bring. Otherwise, you end up in a corner, curled up in a fetal position, pissing your pants. Just like most of the people who win the lottery It's on the news. They've told other friends, and the people who want to get some of that money come out of the fucking woodwork, and they end up having heart attacks, or because they have no budgetary skills. If I won the lottery, I would be broke in a year. Statistically, you'd be broke in a year. Because if you didn't have budgeting and financial intelligence before you won the extra money, that money doesn't give you those skills any more than thinking about going to the goddamn dojo or practicing tomorrow is going to make you do it. Well, I don't feel like it. I don't give a shit. You know how many days I don't feel like stepping out and teaching because I got other things that really need to get done? Does that mean I don't enjoy teaching? No, but there's a feeling there that, you know, but I still teach every class as though it were the last class I was going to teach. Whether there's 1 or there's 20 or whatever. Right? James, that might offend people because I just said that some days I don't want to teach. I'm trying to make a point. Doesn't matter. Students rely on me to be there to teach those lessons. The biggest reason I don't want to teach on some days is the same shit I've been teaching for how many years? And it's not just that no people, you know, people aren't practicing or getting it, because a good percentage are, right? It's because I constantly get new students, and so they haven't heard it before. Anyway, all right. What else? Anything else? You're the Grand Poobah. You want to throw anything on top of this fire?
No. And
James is a Shidoshi ho. He is now. He's never wanted to be a ho, but ho means vice, okay? So vice instructor, assistant instructor, that kind of thing. Not like ho Alexander. What do you got?
nothing. That was it.
All right, fantastic. Guys, thank you very much. Remember, we got one more for 2024. We'll take a look at a process for constant change, so we at least have a way to kind of keep track of where we are and what we're doing, and we're not just flying by the seat of our pants. Okay, put a little bit more security into things, even though life is highly unpredictable. Okay, and then that's going to lead us right into 2025. So thank you very much again. I appreciate it. I appreciate everybody who supports this, whether you're actually on live or you're on one of the recordings or one of the podcast platforms or whatever. Okay. So never, ever forget that. All right. So that's what I have. I will talk to everybody again next time on KUDEN. Get more of KUDEN Radio. Subscribe through your favorite podcasting site or join our clan of serious modern warriors at online